Under the enormous pressure of the ocean floor, at a depth of thousands of meters, completely cut off from sunlight, a series of seismic fractures are breaking apart, erupting with columns of boiling water, reaching up to 400 degrees Celsius. Modern science identifies this system as hydrothermal vents. At that extreme coordinate, thick black smoke rolls upward, forming suffocating clouds beneath the water. Red-hot lava tears through the heart of the deep sea floor, lighting up a realm of eternal darkness. From the earliest ages, ancient human beings called this dark region by a haunting name, Abyss the Deep. What is strangely identical is this: the oldest manuscript pages of the Book of Enoch, lines written thousands of years ago, also describe the abyss as a place filled with fire-dense darkness, gigantic pillars of flame, and a fortified prison prepared for rebellious powers. Could it be that the Book of Enoch once accurately described something lying beneath the deep sea, a dark place filled with fire, and used to seal away the powers that had devastated the order of the Creator? Welcome to the Kyros Codex decoding station. Tonight, we will officially step into that forgotten map. This journey will bring us to the Book of Enoch, from chapter 17 to chapter 19, where Enoch sees with his own eyes the great sea, the unfathomable abyss, and the coordinates where rebellious powers are imprisoned. Immediately after that, we will turn toward chapters 6 through 19. Here we will open up the meaning of the sacred oath, the role of the angel Michael, and the order of creation. All these details converge perfectly in one larger picture of God's sacred authority and control. Not only that, at the end of the video, there will also be countless unexpected discoveries from great civilizations once swallowed by the ocean, to the shadowy forms of gigantic sea monsters that once ruled ancient legends and may still be silently patrolling, waiting to rise again from the darkest trenches of the sea. Who is Enoch, and why does this book matter? The book of Genesis carves the portrait of Enoch with an extremely condensed number of words. In chapter 5, that sacred text records that Enoch lived 365 years, fathered Methuselah, walked with God, and then was taken by God. Only a few brief lines yet, this figure immediately becomes one of the greatest mysteries of the period before the Great Flood. That condensed wording digs a very large empty space into the human mind. What did Enoch see with his own eye? To what region of creation was he taken? For what reason was a human being of flesh and blood taken out of the world in such a special way? And during those years of walking with God, what did he hear? What did he see? And what was entrusted to him? The Genesis quietly closes with only one short sentence. The answer to those mysteries is expanded in the Book of Enoch, also called First Enoch. This is an ancient Jewish apocalyptic work tied to the historical context of the Second Temple period, a time when many Jewish communities reflected deeply on angels, sin, the day of judgment, the origin of evil, and the fate of the world. In most Western Jewish and Christian traditions, the Book of Enoch is placed outside the canonical Bible. But in Ethiopia, this text was preserved within the Orthodox tradition, becoming one of the most important witnesses that helps the modern world approach its content more fully. The ancient value of the Book of Enoch was strongly reinforced when Aramaic manuscript fragments of the Enochic tradition were found at Qumran among the Dead Sea Scrolls. Their presence among ancient Jewish texts shows that Enoch was not a late story constructed afterward. It belonged to a line of tradition that had circulated very early, read, copied, and preserved by some ancient communities as a record of things beyond the brief account in Genesis. This makes Enoch a special figure. He appears very little in the canonical Bible, but he leaves a very long shadow in ancient religious literature. The letter of Jude in the New Testament also mentions a prophecy connected with Enoch, saying that the Lord will come with myriads of his holy ones to execute judgment. That detail shows that in the religious memory of the early period, Enoch was not only a righteous man taken by God, He was also seen as a witness of matters related to the final day, to hidden truth, and to the judgment of God over everything that had gone astray. The body of knowledge in the Book of Enoch goes far beyond the limits of a personal story. This work opens a vast file on the fallen angels, the Watchers, the appearance of the Nephilim, and the state of corruption before the Great Flood. In the world of Enoch, sin does not begin only from the weak choices of human beings. It is also connected with the rebellion of heavenly beings, those who went beyond their assigned duty and brought down to the human world kinds of knowledge that human beings did not yet have enough morality to use properly. This is exactly what gives the Book of Enoch such great weight. It tells of a world before the flood, where the boundary between heaven and earth was violated, where knowledge became a tool of pride, where power departed from the fear of God and pulled humanity into an age of disorder. The Watchers were assigned the task of observing, guiding, and preserving order. But they crossed the sacred limit. From that violation, the world entered a stage that the Book of Enoch views as the deep cause leading to the Great Flood. The pen of Enoch leads the reader far beyond familiar ground. He is taken through the heavens, seeing the operation of the stars, the storehouses of the winds, the ends of the world, the regions appointed for souls, and the places connected with the day of judgment. This work resembles a visionary map where each location does not only carry spatial meaning, but is also tied to the moral order of the universe. Within that map, chapters 17 through 19 radiate a special pull. Here, Enoch is led to strange regions, connected with the great sea darkness, deep waters, the mouth of the abyss, pillars of fire, and a fortified place of imprisonment reserved for heavenly bodies and rebellious beings. These images form the most important part of our theme. The Forbidden Map of Enoch, the forgotten map of what God has sealed beneath the deep. Chapter 17 can be seen as the entrance into that map. Enoch sees the great sea, the deep waters, and the mouth of the abyss. The language here carries the color of ancient vision, but the rhythm of the description is very clear. The prophet is taken out of ordinary life and brought into a space lying at the edge of creation. The sea is no longer merely the vast water surface before human eyes. It becomes the boundary between the familiar world and regions that only God, the angels, or one who has received revelation, can see. In chapter 18, the imagery becomes stronger. Enoch sees an abyss and gigantic pillars of fire, and then he is shown a place called the prison for the stars and the host of heaven. In ancient Jewish apocalyptic literature, the image of the stars often carries many layers of meaning. It can refer to the heavenly bodies in the sky, while also being connected with heavenly beings that have strayed from their appointed course. Therefore, when Enoch speaks of stars being kept in confinement, the text is touching a very deep idea in the creation of God. Even the powers of heaven have limits, order, and appointed times they must obey. Chapter 19 continues to clarify that remarkable part. The angel Uriel explains to Enoch about the angels who joined themselves to the women of mankind, those who caused human beings to go astray and worship false powers as gods. They are kept until the day of the great judgment. This is the direct link between the story of the Watchers and the image of the place of confinement. The sealing in the Book of Enoch is not only punishment, it is also an act of restoring boundaries, placing what is rebellious back under the control of God. Therefore, when we speak of the Forbidden Map of Enoch, we are not speaking of a paper map with geographical coordinates in the modern sense. We are speaking of a visionary map where Enoch is led through the deep regions of the sacred universe in order to see how God sets limits upon rebellion. The great sea, the abyss, the pillars of fire, and the place of imprisonment are all markers on that journey. While Genesis condenses the portrait of Enoch into only a few brief lines, the Book of Enoch expands this figure into a witness of the secrets before the Great Flood. And one of the strangest stages of that journey begins when the prophet is brought to the coordinates of the Great Sea, where water, darkness, fire, and judgment meet. In a scene that still makes readers thousands of years later wonder, What was Enoch shown beneath that deep region? And why did God seal it until the day of judgment? After opening the first pages about the origin of Enoch, we must face the most terrifying part of the book. Imagine that you are holding a map in your hands. But instead of pointing to familiar continents, it leads you straight down into an entirely different world. The forgotten map, the great sea, the abyss, and the darkness. The file of the Book of Enoch officially begins the great map in chapter 17. The author's pen recounts the journey that carries Enoch beyond the familiar boundaries of the human world and straight toward the farthest regions of creation. At this coordinate, sea-fire, darkness, and abyss appear together in a sequence of images carrying enormous weight. At this severe boundary region, the prophet sees with his own eyes beings that carry primal power. He sees living waters and fire of the west, the fire that reigns in the west. He walks along a river of fire surging like water, pouring millions of blocks of blazing red lava into the great sea. The vast sea, the immense ocean at the edge of the world, in the vision language of the ancient apocalyptic mind. This detail requires us to feel it very carefully. In the thinking of the ancients, the Great Sea always carried a meaning far greater than a simple wide body of water. It served as the boundary separating what human beings could understand from what human beings were completely forbidden to touch. It lay at the end of the map, at the place where the path of mortal flesh had to stop, making way for the journey of true vision to begin. When the river of fire pours into the Great Sea, the Book of Enoch places the reader before a majestic scene where elements that seem opposed, water and fire, darkness and light, the upper realm and the lower realm, all operate smoothly under the absolute control of God. Next, Enoch's steps sink deeper into great darkness. A dense mass of darkness, a dimension completely isolated from the steps of mortal flesh. Here he observes the source from which all the waters of the abyss pour forth. And he comes face to face with the mouth of the deep, the gigantic mouth of the abyss. This cluster of images is the entrance to the forgotten map. The Great Sea opens the horizontal breadth of the secret. The darkness cuts deep into the vertical depth of the secret. The mouth of the abyss exposes a doorway leading down into the lower layer of the order of creation. The Book of Enoch steers the reader from the surface of the sea to the bottom of the abyss, from the flowing waters to the source, from the outer landscape straight to the opening of a hidden realm. That intense rhythm of movement lays a solid foundation for the entire theme of Beneath the Ocean Floor in this video. The section of chapter 17 functions exactly like the first key. The text combines the Great Sea, the mass of darkness, the deep waters, and the mouth of the abyss to prepare the way for the following chapters, where the images of imprisonment, blazing pillars of fire, and judgment begin to appear more clearly. Chapter 17 preserves the whole secret. It brings Enoch close to the edge of the abyss, places him right before the boundary region, and forces the reader to feel clearly that beneath that calm surface exists a massive structure waiting to be revealed. The true impact of the map erupts violently in chapter 18. Enoch stands still before a deep abyss and unfathomable depth. Cutting across his field of vision are columns of heavenly fire, great heavenly pillars of fire carrying dimensions beyond every human ability to measure either height or depth. The language of the text shapes this scene into a region of primal energy, where fire casts off the form of earthly flame and transforms into a sign of power, judgment, and the operation of the deepest layers of creation. Behind the mouth of that abyss, an entirely different dimension reveals its form. This coordinate strips Enoch of every familiar feeling about the present world above. There is no firm dome of heaven. Below, there is no solid ground. Cool water and birds are also completely absent from that scene. He is standing alone in a desolate region filled with pressure, where every normal sign of life has been drained from sight. It is within that place of extreme unease that the guiding angel steps forward to decode the mystery. This coordinate is the prison for the stars, and the host of heaven. The fortified prison holding the stars and the heavenly host. This confirmation is the central core of the entire map. In ancient Jewish apocalyptic literature, the stars carry countless layers of meaning on their backs. They serve as the heavenly bodies in the sky, while also symbolizing beings belonging to the host of heaven powers that the Most High has woven into the order of creation. Therefore, when the Book of Enoch speaks about stars being imprisoned, the text detonates a majestic idea. Even the highest forces belonging to the heavenly realm possess orbits, appointed times, and limits that they must obey. Those stars deliberately tore away from the command of God. They moved out of their appointed time, abandoning the place reserved for them in the order of creation. The inevitable consequence was chains, imprisonment, and a period of waiting until the sentence would be fully carried out. The Enoch file releases a weighty declaration through the language of vision itself beneath the region of the abyss. Stand blazing pillars of fire, and there exists a place of imprisonment for the heavenly bodies and the beings who stepped outside the order of the Most High. This is the explosive point that makes the Forbidden Map of Enoch so deeply compelling. That map reaches far beyond the idea of terrain alone. It honors the absolute control of God over every deep region, every heaven, every power, and every rebellious act. If chapter 17 opens the door leading into the great sea and the mouth of the abyss, then chapter 18 places the reader directly before the region of imprisonment. From this point on, the question of the video becomes sharper than ever. What is being sealed in that deep region, and why must that sealing continue until the day of judgment? Chapter 19 pushes the investigation one long step further when Uriel personally provides testimony. This angelic guardian identifies the ones who are bearing the sentence of imprisonment, the angels who once joined themselves in hybrid union with the women of mankind, those who dared to cross the sacred boundary between the heavenly realm and the earthly realm. This is the direct connection between the map of the abyss and the file of the Watchers. According to the Book of Enoch, the Watchers were once entrusted with the task of observing, guiding, and preserving human beings within the order of God. Yet they deliberately trampled across the appointed boundary. They smuggled down into the world bodies of knowledge that humanity lacked the moral foundation to use correctly. That act pushed mankind into a period of deep disorder immediately before the age of the Great Flood. Uriel exposes that the spirits of those angels possess the ability to take many forms, continually steering human beings away from the moral path. They distort the human mind, pull human beings away from the fear of God, and force humanity to offer sacrifices to demons as though they were worshiping gods. This entire evil force receives a strict command of imprisonment, waiting for the day of the final great judgment. This passage locks the file tightly onto the Watchers, exposing the rebellious crime of the group of fallen angels and revealing the reason they received the sentence of being sealed. The imprisonment here carries a layer of meaning greater than a simple sentence. It is the act of re-establishing a boundary of steel. The things that once crossed beyond order must be dragged back under the authority of God. The things that once steered human beings away from the right path must be torn away from human life. The things that once disturbed the world before the Great Flood must endure, waiting until the day of judgment, the moment when every sin is exposed under the light. Chapter 19 perfectly answers the question of who is being held. Chapter 17 illuminates the way into the deep region. Chapter 18 exposes the prison of the stars and the heavenly host. Chapter 19 unmasks the identity of the rebellious beings placed under judgment. These three chapters connect tightly into the first section of the map: the Great Sea, the Abyss, the blazing pillars of fire, and the region of imprisonment. Chapter 21. The architecture of the angelic prison, to establish a foundation as solid as bedrock for the title, What God Sealed. Chapter 21 rises as an essential link. The text continues to carve out a space of extreme disorder, filled with a feeling of majesty and unease. Here the stars are bound tightly, taking the form of gigantic volcanoes, boiling with force. This image continues to lock stars together, with fire linking deviation from orbit, with imprisonment and anchoring the heavenly scene to a region of judgment lying in the deepest layer of creation. Uriel firmly declares that those stars have trampled the command of God and remain in chains until the term of their sin is completed. Immediately after that, Enoch continues to turn his eyes toward another coordinate far more terrifying, submerged within an immense sea of fire. At this point, Uriel pronounces the sentence, "This place is the prison of the angels." This data resounds like thunder throughout the entire Enoch file. Chapter 21 firmly reinforces what chapters 18 and 19 have opened within Enoch's visionary map. There always exist regions established specifically to imprison rebellious beings. Those coordinates are tied to fire, the abyss, subdued chaos, and the appointed time of judgment. This is the explosive point that gives the phrase, "What God sealed beneath the ocean floor," overwhelming weight, because the sealing reaches far beyond an abstract idea. In the vision of Enoch, it possesses a clear location, concrete imagery, angelic witness, and sacred timing. Of course, when this detail is woven into the video, we must maintain an extremely precise, interpretive frame. The Book of Enoch does not provide the viewer with a geographical coordinate in the style of a modern military map. The text gives us directly a visionary map, where sacred locations are carved by fire, abyss, darkness, imprisonment, and judgment. This very method of description shapes the image of the angelic prison into one of the greatest symbols of the entire work. Chapter 69 pulls our view upward from the deep region so that we may behold a much greater cosmic picture. The text exposes the sins of the fallen angels who deliberately leaked forbidden secrets to humanity, while also bringing the reader to touch the deepest foundation of every boundary, every seal, and every order in creation. The center of this chapter honors the sacred oath placed in the hand of the Archangel Michael. In the Book of Enoch, that oath functions to maintain the entire architecture of creation. It keeps the heavens firmly suspended. It anchors the foundation of the earth upon the waters. It uses the boundary of sand to limit the ocean. It locks the abyss tightly at a fixed coordinate. It directs the sun, the moon, and the stars to cling to the orbits already appointed for them. Right here, the idea of sealing reaches its greatest layer of meaning. Sealing goes far beyond shutting a door. Sealing is the act of placing a boundary of steel around things that carry the danger of breaking order. Sealing is the boundary line between ocean and dry land, between the abyss and the living world, between a heavenly body running in its correct orbit and a heavenly body straying from the command, between entrusted power and rebellion that must be imprisoned until the day of judgment. Chapter 69 provides the explanation for why the prison of Enoch must be viewed within the greater picture of creation. If chapters 17 through 19 clearly reveal the great sea, the abyss, the pillars of fire, and the region of imprisonment, then chapter 69 reveals the operating principle reigning behind all of it. God establishes boundaries of steel so that the universe operates in perfect order. Michael protects the oath as a seal of that stability. The heavenly bodies, the ocean, the abyss, and the beings of heaven all obediently remain within the system of limits appointed by the Most High. Enoch proves that every seal, every boundary, and every prison submits absolutely to the order of creation that God has established. Placing a seal upon the abyss is exactly how the Most High maintains the survival of the entire universe. At this moment, the forgotten map has revealed its full form. Chapter 17 opens the way to the great sea, the darkness, and the mouth of the abyss. Chapter 18 places Enoch before the abyss, the pillars of fire, and the prison of the stars. Chapter 19 decodes the identity of the rebellious angels imprisoned until the day of judgment. Chapter 21 strengthens the fortified image of the angelic prison. Chapter 69 unveils the principle of sealing, where the sacred oath maintains the sea, the abyss, the sun, the moon, and the stars within the limits of God. Therefore, the Forbidden Map of Enoch is entirely separate from a map made of ink and paper. It is the map of great sacred boundaries. It leads the reader from the great sea to the bottom of the abyss, from blazing pillars of fire to the dark prison, from the fallen angels to the oath of Michael. In the end, it brings us back to one absolute central truth. In the universe of God, every power possesses a boundary of steel. Every rebellion has a stopping point, and everything that has been sealed will obediently wait for the day of final judgment. Modern science and the studies that match Enoch. After digging through chapters 17, 18, 19, and 21 of the Book of Enoch, we now hold in our hands an extremely unusual, visionary map. A great sea, thick darkness, the mouth of a deep abyss, gigantic pillars of fire, and a place of imprisonment for rebellious beings waiting for the day of judgment. Let us pause for a moment and feel the way this text describes it. Enoch is steered straight toward the great sea. He directly faces great darkness. He sees with his own eyes the mouth of the deep. The farther we move into chapter 18, the more powerfully the imagery rises. He records the presence of a deep abyss standing together with columns of heavenly fire. Immediately, he receives a confirmation that this coordinate has become the prison for the stars and the host of heaven. For ancient people, those images belong to a supernatural dimension. But for us today, they create a chilling comparison, because as soon as science began sending advanced machines down to the bottom of the ocean, humanity realized in astonishment beneath that calm sea surface, there truly exists a world sunk in darkness, deep burning, constantly moving, and filled with phenomena far beyond anything the ancients could have imagined. Let us begin with the foundation of the ocean. Modern science affirms that the mid-ocean ridge system is the longest mountain range on Earth, stretching about 65,000 kilometers, and most of its mass is hidden beneath the deep sea. At the boundaries where tectonic plates tear apart from each other, molten rock from inside the body of the planet rises up, creating new oceanic crust made of basalt. A dark volcanic rock formed from magma cooling beneath the sea. This detail acts like a key of interpretation. It helps us understand why the image of the abyss in Enoch carries such overwhelming weight. Hidden beneath the ocean truly exists a foundation world made of volcanic rock, constantly being born from cracks in the crust of the earth. The ocean covers it with a blanket of water and darkness. But right beneath that veil, the planet is still opening, heating, splitting, and rebuilding itself. From a cinematic point of view, this is a scene with tremendous force. Imagine Enoch standing still before a deep region, for which ancient people had only enough vocabulary to name it with the language of reverent fear: the great sea, the abyss, darkness, the mouth of the deep. Thousands of years pass, and research vessels and geological maps expose the truth. The seafloor is tangled with gigantic fractures, majestic underwater mountain ranges, pitch-black basalt fields, and energy vents from the heart of the earth. Two completely different ways of naming belonging to two ages far apart. Yet both push us toward the same overwhelming feeling. Beneath the ocean is a real layer of world that is alive and operating. Next comes the image of the pillars of fire. Chapter 18 of the Book of Enoch describes columns of heavenly fire rising inside a deep abyss. This image immediately activates the modern mind, connecting directly with hydrothermal vents on the deep sea floor. Scientists call them hydrothermal vents coordinates, where seawater collides with magma, is superheated, dissolves minerals, and then erupts back onto the ocean floor as blazing hot metal-rich flows of water. The organization NOAA describes black smokers as machines that release fluid carrying mineral particles, forming gigantic chimney-like black structures submerged beneath the sea. This is an extremely valuable point of comparison, but we must use it with absolute caution. The Book of Enoch uses visionary language, while modern science uses geological language. We completely set aside the intention of forcing an ancient text to become an oceanographic report. But when Enoch sees pillars of fire piercing the abyss and science today clearly illuminates mineral chimneys releasing hot water in the darkness of the ocean. This resonance of imagery becomes almost unbelievably powerful. That scene seems designed for a blockbuster documentary shot. In the deep sea, where sunlight is completely powerless, black chimneys rise like towers from the stone floor. Blazing hot water erupts, carrying enormous amounts of minerals, colliding with cold water and precipitating into dark clouds. Observed from a distance, it looks exactly like columns of smoke burning upward from the earth. To the eyes of the ancient world, such a violent scene could only be named by one word: fire. What makes hydrothermal vents even more unusual lies in the life surrounding them. When scientists first discovered hydrothermal vents in 1977 near the Galapagos region, they also found countless living creatures clustered around those vents. These ecosystems maintain life entirely through chemical reactions between seawater and magma, instead of depending on sunlight, as most living things on the surface do. This was a spectacular twist in humanity's understanding of the ocean. Before that, researchers had assumed the deep sea was an empty desert. But hydrothermal vents provided firm evidence life can cling on in thick darkness, bone-crushing pressure-toxic minerals, and extreme temperatures. Life there operates according to a completely different logic, absolutely separated from the familiar rhythm of light and darkness on the land. When placed beside the Enoch file, this detail detonates a new layer of meaning. The ancient text sets the deep region as a coordinate where water, fire, darkness, and imprisonment intersect. Modern science provides evidence that the seafloor is also a place where water, hot rock, darkness, and strange life gather together. Two independent systems of language, yet both steer us toward one sharp recognition: the depths of the ocean conceal operating systems that human beings have only begun to touch in the modern age. And then science continues to advance life beneath the seafloor. In 2020, a research team led by Yuki Morono published a shocking discovery in the journal Nature Communications. They found communities of aerobic microorganisms still stubbornly surviving in extremely nutrient-poor sediment in the South Pacific. These sediment samples were dated from 4.3 million to 101.5 million years old. When supplied with substrates under laboratory conditions, many cells immediately absorbed carbon and nitrogen, and some communities exploded strongly in number within only 68 days. That study does not confirm that angels are imprisoned beneath the seafloor, but it proves a truth that can chill the listener's spine. Beneath the deep sediment layers of the ocean, and life has the ability to exist in an extremely slow, extremely energy-saving state, completely isolated across spans of time so long that they shatter ordinary human intuition. For a file about Enoch, this is an invaluable piece. The Book of Enoch speaks of beings being frozen in confinement until an appointed time. Modern science, in its own method, proves that the seafloor has the ability to preserve life in ancient sediment layers where time seems to stand still. One side uses theological language about sealing. The other uses biological language about durable survival in low-energy environments. When placed beside each other, they form an extremely compelling thread of connection. Another study from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution (WHOI) continues to cut this image deeper into the bottom layers. Scientists examined rock samples extracted from the oceanic crust collected during an international drilling expedition at Atlantis Bank in the South Indian Ocean. They found vivid evidence of a diverse microbial community living hidden inside rocks deep beneath the sea floor, maintaining life through carbon sources and compounds that seep through fractures in the oceanic crust. This discovery turns the seafloor into a far greater picture. Above is the unfathomably deep body of water. Beneath it is a thick layer of sediment. Deeper still are the rock layers of the oceanic crust, filled with cracks, fluids, minerals, and microbial life. The ocean casts off the image of a flat surface lying beneath ships. It rises into a complex, multi-layered system possessing a surface, an abyssal floor, a sub-sea floor layer, hidden flows, and even quiet life blooming inside hard rock. In 2024, a study in Nature Communications added more blood to make that picture intensely alive. While exploring hydrothermal vents at the East Pacific Rise, the research team discovered animals such as tube worms and many other marine creatures living inside shallow cavities beneath the sea floor located very close to the vents. Before that, scientists had always assumed that the sub-seafloor region in this area was reserved only for microorganisms and viruses. It exposes a truth. The boundary between on the seafloor and beneath the seafloor is 10,000 times more complex than we once imagined. Life has the ability to slip into cavities, move along fluid flows, and safely dwell in spaces that the human eye is completely blind to. An underground world beneath the world is gradually taking shape slowly through each deep dive, each ancient rock sample, each sediment core, and each new discovery. When we return to open the Book of Enoch, we immediately understand why chapters 17 and 18 possess such timeless attraction. Enoch does not use terms such as basalt magma, hydrothermal vents, or sub-seafloor biosphere. He also does not use the writing style of a modern scientist. But he perfectly carves a journey rushing straight into the deep region where the great sea darkness, the mouth of the abyss, fire and imprisonment all appear together. That sharp structure of imagery forces the modern person to reflect deeply when looking back at what science is uncovering beneath the ocean. The strongest points of correspondence gather fully in 4 layers. The first layer is geology. The ocean floor truly possesses a volcanic rock foundation, underwater ridges, and tectonic regions that continuously produce the crust of the Earth. The second layer is energy. In the deep sea hydrothermal vents truly reign blazing hot chimneys operating in the darkness, strongly calling to mind the image of fiery pillars burning in the abyss. The third layer is life. The deep region, once labeled as a realm of death, actually embraces ecosystems based on chemical energy, where living creatures thrive powerfully in the complete absence of sunlight. The fourth layer is preservation. The sediment and rock layers beneath the seafloor possess the power to isolate microbial communities across extremely long periods of time, making the image of being imprisoned in the deep feel more tangible and closer to the imagination of modern human beings. All these points require us to place them in their proper coordinates. Science helps us understand the seafloor through systems of samples, measuring instruments, drilling ships, diving robots, and laboratory analyses. The Book of Enoch helps us perceive the abyss through visionary language, where every hidden region submits absolutely to the control of God. These 2 lenses seem to reinforce the same information beneath that sea surface. There truly exists a world deeper, darker, older, and 10,000 times more complex than anything human beings once imagined. And that amazement continues to erupt when we move our eyes away from geological fractures and touch the legacies of archaeology. That gigantic curtain of salt water is embracing the remains of many great civilizations that once rose proudly on the land. The megalithic cities, the monolithic stone steps, and the temple systems submerged deep beneath the layers of water that we are about to explore next will serve as living evidence showing that what Enoch revealed thousands of years ago about the Watchers or the event of the Great Flood is completely real. The discovery of ancient cities submerged deep beneath the ocean. The 2 lenses of visionary revelation and geology have just collided at a point where astonishment converges. Beneath the surface of the sea, there truly exists a world 10,000 times deeper, darker, more ancient, and more complex than anything humanity has ever imagined. That astonishment continues to erupt as we turn our eyes away from geological fault lines and reach toward genuine archaeological remains. That immense veil of salt water is embracing the ruins of countless great civilizations. Join me as we descend into a shocking question. Are we truly the only advanced civilization ever to have existed? Or tens of thousands of years ago had our ancestors already built magnificent empires that far surpassed the image of primitive human groups scattered throughout caves? The following cities submerged deep beneath the ocean will tell us the great stories of human history directly. At present, underwater ruins scattered across the continents are delivering a direct challenge to the mainstream model of history and the theory of evolution. Faced with this reality, the mainstream academic establishment often chooses silence, leaving the journey of deeper research and public disclosure to minds with genuine courage. Moving beyond the barriers created by conservative academia, a large number of pioneering researchers continue to place their full confidence in the existence of a brilliant ancient civilization. That civilization was wiped away 11,500 years ago by a sudden global rise in sea levels. In recent years, numerous ancient cities have continued to emerge, providing powerful evidence for the existence of legendary empires on the scale of Atlantis. To strengthen this case, we need only examine humanity's oral heritage. Cultures throughout the world have preserved clear accounts of a great global flood. The evidence lies scattered everywhere, speaking with one voice about the same catastrophe: Atrahasis in Sumerian mythology, the Epic of Gilgamesh in Babylonian tradition, the Bible of the Jewish people, the Book of Documents which records the ancient history of China, the sacred Hindu texts, Matsya Purana and Shatapatha Brahmana, dating to the first millennium before Christ. Plato engraved this event into Greek history through Timaeus and Critias. The Maya civilization preserved it through the Popol Vuh. Even the Vietnamese legend of Ba Bay Lake, together with countless other traditions around the world, speaks of a great flood that swept across the earth in the distant past. The most perfect piece of evidence for this great cleansing event is the stone-paved road beneath the sea at Bimini Island. One of the first submerged cities beneath the ocean was revealed near Bimini Island in the Bahamas in September of the year 1968. During an exploratory diving expedition, Dr. J. Manson Valentine and the legendary diver Jacques Mayol personally witnessed a system of roads paved with enormous rectangular and polygonal stone blocks lying silently beneath the water. The discovery immediately triggered a series of large-scale academic expeditions. Throughout the 1970s, Dr. David Zink, who led the Posidi Exploration Project, dropped a bombshell on the archaeological world when he published close-up photographs of the Bimini structure. His team exposed an astonishing reality. The stones had been joined together using an elaborate system of interlocking male and female joints. This was a construction technology requiring a masterful command of mathematics and architecture. In addition, the megalithic system had been arranged along precise geometric axes aligned perfectly with the constellations of the ancient sky. The stones used to construct this road reach lengths of up to 5 meters and display an extraordinary level of sculptural perfection. Following in the footsteps of their predecessors, veteran oceanographic researchers such as Dr. Greg Little and William Donato continued to probe deep beneath the sea floor at Bimini using modern sonar technology. The geological scans revealed a shocking truth. The Bimini site extends far beyond the appearance of a simple paved road. Hidden beneath the surface lies a system of stone platforms stacked securely in multiple layers. This evidence powerfully confirms that the structure was either a great harbor or an enormous defensive wall belonging to a maritime empire that once ruled the earth. The archaeological team also successfully recovered cylindrical pillars and massive stone anchors bearing unmistakable signs of human craftsmanship. The most astonishing detail lies in the mysterious similarity between these submerged stone blocks and the megalithic system at Sacsayhuaman, a magnificent ancient structure located several kilometers from Cusco, standing at an elevation of 3,300 meters above sea level. The polygonal stone-cutting techniques seen at both Bimini and Sacsayhuaman display an extraordinary level of craftsmanship. Enormous megalithic blocks weighing tens of tons were fitted together so tightly that even the thinnest razor blade could not penetrate the joints. According to the assessment of Dr. Valentine and veteran researchers, such as the marine archaeologist Robert Marks, this submerged architectural system is clearly artificial. And they dated its origins to the Ice Age. Core samples extracted from the area also revealed traces of civilized life that existed tens of thousands of years before rising sea levels swallowed the land. When these archaeological ruins are placed upon the map described in the Book of Enoch, the entire picture suddenly becomes illuminated. The megalithic blocks beneath the waters of Bimini, the deeply submerged cities, and the memory of a global flood form the physical body of a great spiritual event. They are the legacy of an age that once flourished through a system of forbidden knowledge taught by the Watchers. The techniques of metallurgy, stoneworking, and astrology spread by the fallen angels created vast cities that rose in defiance of the power of the Most High. The perfection of those 5-meter stone blocks is the surviving trace of an ancient technology that had been pushed beyond all proper limits. God initiated the Great Flood Protocol as a form of ecological cleansing while simultaneously submerging every center of power from the old world into the depths. The great cities of that former age have now become megalithic stone tombs lying obediently beneath thousands of meters of water. The abyss has embraced them completely, maintaining an unbreakable seal that keeps the seeds of arrogance locked away from the reach of future generations. Mysterious underwater roads off the coast of Florida, leaving the shallow waters of the Bahamian archipelago behind. The file of oceanic archaeology continues to pull us straight down toward coordinates far deeper and vastly darker. Near the coast of Florida itself, another colossal relic is sleeping beneath crushing pressure. In the year 1969, the submarine Illuminaut, at that time one of the most advanced deep-diving machines in the United States, carried out an expedition that tore through the darkness beneath the ocean. At a marked depth of 900 meters, the entire crew came face to face with a discovery that sent shockwaves around the world. The vessel's high-powered floodlights shone directly upon the remains of an ancient megacity lying submerged on the seafloor. Standing out among those magnificent architectural structures, the explorers witnessed with their own eyes a gigantic avenue stretching as far as 20 kilometers. The surface of this roadway displayed a level of flatness approaching perfection, cutting across the ocean floor exactly like a runway built by a modern civilization. What made researchers shudder was the very nature of this immense avenue's composition. The collected samples were reported to contain clear traces of aluminum silicon and magnesium oxide. The presence of these compounds delivered a devastating blow to every attempt to explain the structure as a product of natural geological formation. In order to refine aluminum and magnesium oxide, a civilization would have been required to master extremely high-temperature metallurgical technology, together with a massive system of industrial mining machinery. The moment this geological data is placed alongside the Book of Enoch, every piece immediately locks into place to form a terrifying picture. Chapter 8 of the Enoch record exposes the crime of Azazel, one of the supreme leaders of the Watchers. It was Azazel who passed down to humanity the secrets of metallurgy, the methods of extracting ore, and the technology of refining metals from the earth. That 20-kilometer superhighway at a depth of 900 meters is the most radiant surviving remnant of that forbidden body of knowledge. It is ironclad proof of a pre-flood civilization that had risen to dazzling heights in material technology, standing up to challenge every boundary established by the Creator. The coordinate of 900 meters beneath sea level carries immense theological weight. At that depth, the entire superstructure lies completely beyond the reach of ordinary climate change or normal glacial melting. The fact that an entire metallic avenue was plunged into the bottom of the abyss confirms the direct intervention of a supreme power. God unleashed a great earthquake together with the waters of judgment, tearing apart the continental mass and sinking the entire proud technological center of the old world into the deepest layer of the ocean. Once again, the abyss carried out its role as a great prison with perfect effectiveness. It swallowed the Florida superhighway, maintaining its seal of seawater and pressure imprisoning forever the sinful legacies of the Watchers beneath a mass of thick darkness awaiting the end of the world. The megalithic ruins at Bimini and the metallic superhighway off Florida are only the visible tip of the submerged iceberg. Down in that dark abyss, the Most High has appointed even greater forces to stand guard. The mysterious underwater pyramid of Japan, leaving the waters of the Americas behind tonight's journey, carries us across the entire Pacific Ocean to a small island located at the far western edge of Japan. The name of that island is Yonaguni. It belongs to the Yaeyama Islands and lies much closer to Taiwan than to the main islands of Japan. On days when the sky is perfectly clear, the island's residents can even see the mountains of Taiwan rising along the horizon approximately 111 kilometers away. The waves around Yonaguni are powerful. The cliffs are steep, and the waters south of the island are a place where schools of hammerhead sharks frequently appear during the winter. But beneath those turquoise waters lies a far stranger sight. At a depth of approximately 26 meters, an enormous rock formation rests close to the seafloor, extending outward, like the foundation of a city that has been swallowed by the sea. Broad level surfaces follow one another. Stone steps descend in successive tiers. Vertical edges meet in a way that can easily remind any diver seeing them for the first time of a step pyramid. The Japanese call this location Yonaguni Kaitei Chike, meaning the Yonaguni underwater topography. International media commonly refer to it by a more intriguing name, the Yonaguni Monument. Many local divers still call the site Kaitei Iseki, the ruins beneath the sea. According to figures published by the Japan National Tourism Organization, the main rock formation measures approximately 100 meters in length, 60 meters in width, and nearly 25 meters in height. A prominent central section within the complex is often described as approximately 50 meters long and 20 meters wide. The top of the structure lies relatively close to the surface, while its base descends into the darker waters below. Viewed from a sufficient distance, it resembles a structure that was once built for people to walk upon. Seen more closely, that impression becomes even stronger. The rock surfaces open into broad terraces. Several narrow grooves run along the edges like drainage channels. Vertical cliffs several meters high create the appearance of walls. In many places, the stone levels are connected by sloping passages and sequences of low steps wide enough for a group of people to move across. These very features have made Yonaguni one of the most famous mysteries of underwater archaeology in the world. Was it once a structure created by human beings? Was it a natural formation that ancient inhabitants modified and used? Or is the entire scene simply an extraordinary result of rock formations, earthquakes, and ocean currents? This question has drawn geologists, divers, filmmakers, and researchers of lost history to Yonaguni for 4 decades. The story began in the year 1986. At the time, Kihachiro Aratake was a diving guide and tour operator on the island. He regularly surveyed the southern waters in search of new diving locations, particularly places where tourists could observe schools of hammerhead sharks. During one such trip, Aratake swam through the clear waters near Cape Arakawa-Bana. When he looked down, he saw enormous straight lines emerging from the sea floor. At first, they appeared to be ordinary cliffs. Then the current carried him closer. A broad level surface opened before him, followed by square stone steps descending in successive tiers. The neighboring cliff formed an almost perfect right angle. The entire rock mass was so large that Aratake felt as though he were swimming along the foundation of a fortress. Many years later, he still clearly remembered his body's reaction at that moment. Goosebumps rose across his skin. His hair stood on end beneath his diving hood. The sight before him reminded him of Machu Picchu, except that this structure lay beneath the ocean and was covered with coral seaweed and layers of small marine organisms clinging to the stone surfaces. Aratake returned to the site many times with members of his diving team. They took photographs, made preliminary measurements, and followed each stone edge in an attempt to understand the scale of what they had found. News quickly spread beyond the small island. In the years that followed, researchers began arriving at Yonaguni. Each dive added another section to the map. They identified areas and named them according to their appearance. The main terrace, the twin megaliths, the triangle pool, the turtle monument, and the stadium. These names helped the diving teams navigate underwater. At the same time, they caused the image of a sunken city to take increasingly deep root in the public imagination. As the three-dimensional map gradually became more complete, the main structure emerged as an enormous stone foundation cut into multiple levels. This point must be examined with precision. Yonaguni is primarily formed from bedrock belonging to the Yayama group, consisting of sandstone and mudstone dating geologically to the early Miocene epoch, approximately 20 million years ago. Most of the so-called megaliths remain connected to the bedrock beneath them. They take the form of monolithic stone slabs separated along horizontal layers and vertical fracture lines, rather than individual blocks transported from somewhere else and stacked together. Even so, the scale of the formation remains overwhelming. At the center stands a large rock mass with broad tiers that immediately reminds observers of a step pyramid. On either side are deep grooves, narrow passages, flat surfaces, and cliffs rising almost vertically. A pair of tall stone pillars standing close together is called the twin megaliths. A depression with an almost square outline is called the triangle pool. Farther away lies a wide area with successive stone steps, which the team of Professor Masaki Kimura named the stadium. And this is where the debate begins to grow intense. Masaki Kimura is a geologist who formerly worked at the University of the Ryukyus. He spent many years diving and surveying Yonaguni using Siabati sonar equipment, underwater robots, topographic maps, and direct observation with scuba equipment. In research published during the early 2000s, Kimura and his colleagues described a survey area covering approximately 1 square kilometer off the southern coast of Yonaguni. They identified formations that they interpreted as a step pyramid roads, water channels retaining walls and interconnected structures. According to Kimura, the concentration of so many flat surfaces, terraces, cut grooves, and angular features within the same area suggested that human hands had once participated in shaping the site. He focused on sections where the edges of the rock appeared sharper than the surrounding formations. Certain depressions were interpreted as tool marks. Some stone slabs displayed outlines resembling animals, a human face, or the head of a creature viewed from the side. Kimura called one of these formations the underwater sphinx. He described another figure as resembling a bull or a wild boar. Small grooves on the rock surface were interpreted by him as primitive symbols or carvings made by ancient inhabitants. Kimura's team also named areas according to the functions they imagined for them: a castle, a temple, an archway, a ceremonial courtyard, a circular road, and a stadium with rows of steps resembling seating. Under this interpretation, Yonaguni appears as an urban or ceremonial center carved directly into the bedrock. Kimura proposed several different dates during the course of his research. At one point, he placed the formation or use of the site at approximately 10,000 years ago, during a period when sea levels were lower than they are today. His later estimates reduced its age to at least approximately 5,000 years, and at times brought it closer to a period between 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. These changes reflect a fundamental difficulty. The rock at Yonaguni is millions of years old geologically, while the time when human beings may have altered its surface can only be established through archaeological evidence directly connected to human activity. To this day, the site still lacks confirmed habitation layers, fire pits, burials, pottery, human bones, or tools preserved in their original positions within a clearly defined archaeological layer. Kimura presented stalactite samples from nearby submerged caves. traces of charcoal found on the island, and objects he considered stone tools. However, directly connecting them to the Yonaguni Formation still requires additional evidence. Kimura himself repeatedly called for continued surveys, sampling and analysis of the material layers covering the figures believed to be relief carvings. Even so, Kimura's hypothesis opened a highly compelling door. He connected Yonaguni with the legend of Mu, a lost continent in the Pacific Ocean, often called the Atlantis of the East. Under this reconstruction, the waters surrounding the Ryukyu Islands once contained broader areas of land than they do today. An ancient community carved temples and terraced foundations into the rock. Later, earthquake subsidence and rising sea levels carried the entire landscape beneath the water. This scenario possesses at least one geological foundation worthy of consideration. Approximately 20,000 years ago, during the last glacial maximum, enormous amounts of water were trapped within ice sheets, covering North America, Northern Europe, and many regions of the Northern Hemisphere. Global sea levels were then more than 120 meters lower than they are today. As the climate warmed, the ice melted, and the oceans gradually rose, submerging coastal plains and continental shelves that had once stood above the water. For a site now located at a depth of approximately 26 meters, the possibility that the Yonaguni area was once exposed during a distant period is entirely consistent with the history of changing sea levels. This opens a possibility more realistic than the story of a vast empire. Ancient people may once have walked across this terrain when it was still located near the shoreline. They may have used the natural stone terraces for observation ceremonies, fishing, or shelter. Some rock surfaces may have been modified, widened, or flattened. Even Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University and a prominent voice within the natural formation position, left this possibility open. Schoch arrived at Yonaguni with a relatively open mind. He had previously shown interest in hypotheses concerning civilizations older than those recognized by mainstream history and conducted dozens of dives at the site. After observing the bedrock collecting samples and comparing the underwater structure with cliffs on the island, Schoch concluded that most of Yonaguni had formed naturally. The sandstone there contains parallel bedding planes. The rock easily separates along horizontal lines, creating flat surfaces resembling terraces. Systems of joints and faults running in nearly vertical directions create square edges, narrow grooves, and steep walls. Frequent earthquakes cause blocks of stone to fracture. Powerful waves and ocean currents remove loose material from the surfaces, leaving behind stone layers that appear cleaner and sharper than formations on land. Schoch estimated that Yonaguni may be more than 95% natural in origin. The remaining portion may have been modified, used, or revered by human beings, similar to the way prehistoric people used a natural cave and then painted upon its interior walls. This argument becomes even more significant when we look at Yonaguni Island itself. On the southeastern coast of the island lies a formation known as Saninu Dai. The cliffs there form terraces, flat platforms, and almost square fracture lines that closely resemble the structure beneath the water. Japan's Agency for Cultural Affairs has described Saninu Dai as a formation created when layers of sandstone and mudstone were cut by joints and faults, then further shaped by weathering ocean waves and landslides. These very processes created straight stone steps, vertical cliffs, and broad level surfaces along the shore. This is the strongest evidence presented by the natural geology position. If nature can create stone terraces resembling architecture on the island's surface, the same process could certainly continue beneath the ocean. This group also offers an explanation for the post holes identified by Kimura. Swirling currents around depressions can grind the stone into circular cavities. Marine organisms frequently bore into weak areas of the rock, creating rows of small holes. Marks resembling writing may have been caused by cracks organisms attached to the stone diving equipment or prolonged erosion. Even the impression of perfection must be viewed with caution. Seaweed and organisms covering the stone surfaces can conceal irregular sections. Underwater light reduces visual depth. A photograph taken from the right angle can easily transform a slanted surface into what appears to be a sharp right angle. When filmmakers select only the most symmetrical sections, the entire complex looks more like a constructed monument than it does during the actual experience of a diver. However, supporters of an artificial origin still raise a reasonable question. Why are so many shapes resembling architecture concentrated within a relatively small area? They point to the sequence of terraces, sloping passages, two parallel stone pillars, large platforms, narrow channels, and long lines that appear almost perfectly straight. Some have also proposed that the structure was aligned with compass directions or seasonal positions of the sun. That proposed astronomical alignment remains within the realm of hypothesis. Widely published surveys have not yet established an astronomical orientation system clear enough to gain acceptance among archaeologists. The most reliable approach remains to measure each stone surface, identify tool marks through microscopic examination, search for habitation layers, and recover evidence directly connected to human activity. Until such evidence appears, Yonaguni continues to stand between two interpretations. One side sees an extraordinary geological landscape. The other sees the surviving foundation of an ancient structure. Between them lies a possible compromise. Nature created the rock formation, and ancient people later used and partially modified it. Marine archaeologist Sean Kingsley is frequently associated in popular articles with the view that Yonaguni belongs to the period before post-Ice Age sea levels rose. However, scientific data concerning sea level change remains the strongest foundation for this argument. Coastal regions once extended much farther than they do today, and many landscapes containing traces of human activity around the world were submerged by the ocean after the ice melted. What this data proves is the existence of lost lands. The identity of Yonaguni's inhabitants, their level of technical skill, and the true function of the rock formation still await direct physical evidence. The Japanese authorities and research community currently maintain a cautious position. Japan's Agency for Cultural Affairs and the Okinawa prefectural government have not classified the Yonaguni monument as an archaeological site or an important cultural property. By contrast, Japan's tourism industry presents it as a unique destination where visitors may observe the formation and decide for themselves whether it belongs to nature or human history. Those who wish to see and touch Yonaguni with their own eyes must descend into the water. Local diving tours provide boats, equipment, and experienced guides. The site lies at a depth suitable for recreational diving, but the currents are often extremely strong. Divers need buoyancy control skills, the ability to remain in formation, and experience responding when the current pushes their bodies away from the planned route. At times, the water surrounding the island is so clear that the entire series of stone terraces can be seen from above. On other days, the currents carry sand and sediment, rapidly reducing visibility. At those moments, the diver sees only individual sections of the structure emerging in the light. A stone wall, a series of steps, a broad platform. Then everything disappears behind the dark blue water. This experience is what makes Yonaguni so haunting. Human beings naturally perceive order within large and symmetrical forms. Our brains search for doors, walls, faces, and the handprints of those who came before us. Sometimes that instinct leads to an archaeological discovery. Sometimes it transforms a cliff into a city within the imagination. And Yonaguni still preserves enough evidence for both possibilities. But now let us temporarily set the geological debate aside. Kyros Codex has another lens through which to view this underwater rock formation. It is the lens of the Book of Enoch. The boundary must be established from the beginning. The Book of Enoch belongs to the world of the ancient Near East, while Yonaguni lies in the western Pacific Ocean. The text never names Japan, the Ryukyu Islands, or an underwater city at this location. The connection between the two, therefore, belongs to the level of symbolic and moral interpretation. Viewed through that lens, Yonaguni evokes the image of a world that once reached an immense scale, and then disappeared beneath the water. The Book of Enoch says that before the Great Flood, angels called the Watchers abandoned their assigned positions and descended to live among humanity. Azazel taught people how to make swords, knives, shields, and armor, while also revealing the use of metals and jewelry. Semjaza was associated with enchantments and knowledge of roots. Other figures taught the observation of the stars, signs of the earth, and the movements of heavenly bodies. Knowledge entered a society that had lost its capacity for self-restraint. Weapons caused violence to spread. Greed drew people into conflict. The Nephilim consumed the harvests, attacked living creatures, and drove the earth into chaos. When humanity's cries rose upward, God ordered the archangels to capture the rebellious Watchers, warn Noah, and prepare judgment through water. Within that story, the problem extends deeper than technical knowledge. The ability to create always requires a conscience strong enough to control it. A society may know how to cut stone-forged metal, observe the sky, and construct enormous monuments. But when power grows more rapidly than morality, those very achievements become instruments serving ambition, violence, and domination. When Yonaguni is placed within this framework, the underwater rock formation begins to carry a different meaning. The immense terraces suggest the labor of a large community. The broad platforms evoke ceremonies, public gatherings, or communal activities. The scale of the formation causes many people to associate it with the age of the giants described in Enoch. That association creates a powerful story, but it must remain in its proper place. The Yonaguni bedrock currently shows no evidence of megaliths weighing hundreds of tons that were lifted and transported. Most of the formation remains connected to the original bedrock. If human beings ever participated in shaping it, the more appropriate techniques may have involved carving, splitting, widening, and flattening natural fractures that already existed. Even the interpretation of the alleged carvings requires a clearly maintained boundary. The Book of Enoch associates Azazel with metallurgy weapons and ornamentation. Semjaza and certain other Watchers are associated with enchantments and secret knowledge. The markings on the Yonaguni rocks have not yet been deciphered as a writing system, much less established as evidence of a magical language belonging to fallen angels. Nevertheless, on the symbolic level, they continue to raise a question worthy of reflection. What happens when humanity receives knowledge before it possesses the moral maturity required to control it? This is also a point where many ancient traditions meet. Indian texts such as the Mahabharata and the Vishnu Purana describe time through successive cycles known as yugas. Each great cycle moves from a period of strong order and virtue toward an age of moral decline before opening the way for a new era. The Maya used multiple interlocking calendar systems. The long count recorded time through large units, allowing them to place historical and primordial events within a sequence extending far beyond the span of a human life. This system reflects the belief that time operates through great rhythms. Although it is not itself a prophecy that the world must end at the conclusion of every cycle, the Book of Enoch focuses on a pre-flood world in which violence, abused knowledge, and rebellion lead to judgment. These three traditions differ in geography, language, and theology. Yet they meet in a familiar realization. Civilization always exists within limits, and material power develops sustainably only when human beings preserve moral discipline. Yonaguni therefore becomes an appropriate image for this ancient concern. Imagine this landscape during a period of lower sea levels. Sunlight shines directly upon the stone terraces. The shoreline lies farther out at sea. People walk across the broad platforms, place wooden posts into the stone cavities, light fires, and look toward the ocean. Many generations later, the climate gradually warms. The ice upon the continents melts. Sea levels rise meter by meter over the course of many centuries. The coastline moves inland. Low-lying lands become saltwater marshes. Storms and earthquakes cause the cliffs to fracture further. Yonaguni lies within a highly active tectonic region. The Ryukyu Islands stretch along a boundary where the Philippine Sea Plate moves beneath the edge of the Eurasian Plate. Earthquakes and tsunamis have repeatedly affected this region throughout history. Seawater tectonic movement and time possess enough power to transform a coastal landscape into the submerged formation seen today. Under a historical interpretation, this was a prolonged geological process. Under the interpretation of Enoch, water also carries the meaning of judgment. It closes an age when violence has exceeded the limits granted to humanity. A sustainable civilization begins with much smaller choices. Keeping promises, treating others fairly, restraining greed, protecting the vulnerable, and remembering that power always comes with responsibility. Yonaguni does not need to be proven as a city of giants in order to communicate that lesson. Simply by looking at the stone terraces submerged beneath the water, we understand that material glory always has limits. What ultimately remains is the way human beings lived what they did with power and the moral traces they left behind for those who came after them. The Yonaguni monument still lies there, like a stone anchor fastening the past to the bottom of the sea. It preserves the memory of lands that once stood above the water, the power of nature civilizations that may have disappeared, and the limits every generation must confront. For those who look through the lens of Enoch, those terraces also resemble a pathway leading into a chapter of history that the water is closed, a chapter in which knowledge advanced beyond conscience. Power became greater than compassion, and arrogance caused humanity to forget that every ability it possesses carries a responsibility before the one who gave life. The submerged city of Kambat. Leaving behind the submerged stone terraces off the coast of Yonaguni, tonight's journey continues westward, crossing the South China Sea, the Strait of Malacca, and the entire Indian Ocean, before coming to a stop along the coast of the Indian state of Gujarat. Here, a funnel-shaped body of water cuts deep into the land. The British once called it the Gulf of Cambay. Today it is known as the Gulf of Kambat. Viewed from a satellite, the Gulf resembles a long mouth opening into the Arabian Sea. Four major rivers, the Narmada, Tapti, Mahi, and Sabarmati, continually pour water, sand, and sediment into it. The tides rise extremely quickly, reaching a range of more than 12 meters in some places. Underwater currents sometimes accelerate to approximately 8 nautical miles per hour, powerful enough to carry fragments of stone, decaying wood, and small objects far from their original locations. Thick sediment turns the water a muddy brown, while visibility on the seafloor is often reduced to no more than a few handspans. This is one of the most difficult marine regions to survey in India. And it was beneath these murky waters that a major debate over the origins of human civilization began. In the year 2000, scientists from India's National Institute of Ocean Technology, commonly abbreviated as NIOT, were conducting an environmental and geological survey of the seafloor in the Gulf of Kambat. Their original mission focused on marine pollution, the topography of the Gulf floor, and conditions relevant to the construction of offshore structures. The research vessel moved slowly through the sediment-filled water. Beneath its hull, side-scan sonar equipment continuously transmitted sound pulses toward the bottom. Each signal struck mud rock or raised object, and then reflected back, allowing computers to construct an image based on the strength and weakness of the returning sound. Sonar does not produce a photograph like a camera. It creates a map made from echoes. Among thousands of indistinct scanning lines, the research team unexpectedly noticed shapes repeating in a fairly regular order. Some appeared as squares and rectangles. Several lines ran parallel to one another. Other areas rose between 2 and 3 meters above the seafloor, resembling the foundations of structures buried beneath the sand. The NIOT team returned to the same location. The second scan produced similar results. They then brought multi-beam sonar and sub-bottom profiling equipment into the area. The data gradually outlined 2 ancient river channels buried beneath the Gulf. Along one lost riverbed extending for more than 9 kilometers, geometric signals appeared in clusters approximately 20 kilometers from the present coastline at depths ranging from 20 to 40 meters. Those 9 kilometers are often described by the media as the length of a submerged city. The technical record presents a more cautious picture. The number primarily describes the section of the ancient riverbed where the unusual signals are concentrated. Along both sides of the river, sonar recorded structures resembling foundations, ranging in size from approximately 5 square meters to 15 square meters and rising among sand ripples that are constantly shifting. From the NIOT team's perspective, these geometric forms suggested a settlement extending along the riverbanks. The researchers began recognizing shapes familiar from Harappan cities, an elevated platform resembling a fortified citadel, a depression suggesting a large bathing pool, rows of building foundations distributed with relative regularity, and long lines interpreted as a drainage system. At that moment, Khumbu't changed from an oceanographic survey project into a story with the potential to alter the history of South Asia. On May 19th, in the year 2001, Murli Manohar Joshi, who was then serving as a minister in the Indian government with responsibility for areas related to science technology and human resource development, announced the discovery to the press. He presented the area as the remains of an urban settlement older than the Indus Valley civilization. The initial descriptions referred to houses, grain storage facilities, fortifications, bathing pools, and a drainage system. The news immediately spread around the world. This was the point when the story began moving faster than the evidence. Many headlines called Khumbu't the oldest city in human history. Some articles described it as a fully confirmed urban center. Television programs reconstructed streets, temples, harbors, and immense halls beneath the murky water. However, the announcement that year remained a preliminary assessment. Sonar reveals shapes. Archaeology requires physical evidence found in its proper position to determine who created those shapes, what purpose they served, and the period to which they belonged. The Indian government later formed a national research group to continue surveying the area. NIOT returned to Khumbu't with additional equipment, including Van Veen grab samplers, dredging systems gravity cores, and vibratory sediment cores. Conditions in Khumbu't made a conventional underwater excavation nearly impossible. A diver descending to a depth of 30 or 40 meters would encounter powerful currents, extremely limited visibility, and sediment continually striking the diving mask. A single wrong movement could carry the diver's body away from the survey area. For this reason, the first recovery operations relied mainly upon machinery lowered from the ship. A steel grab descended toward the seafloor. It entered the mud closed and was pulled back up. Each time the grab was opened on deck, the researchers saw a chaotic mixture of mud shells, stones, wood bones, and small fragments of material. They washed each section with water, spread the contents out, and searched for traces of the human hand. From the area surrounding the ancient riverbed, NIOT reported recovering several noteworthy objects. One was a small barrel-shaped chert bead, measuring approximately 13 millimeters in length and 6 millimeters in width, with a hole running through its center. A chert tool resembling a scraper, more than 7 centimeters long, had a sharp edge and a form suggesting a prehistoric stone tool tradition. Other samples included fragments of low-fired pottery clay, mixed with grass material from hearths, perforated stones, animal bones, pieces of bone interpreted as human, and several teeth. The NIOT team also reported traces of material resembling wattle and daub made from clay plant fibers, rice husks, freshwater shells, and small pottery fragments. Several samples showed signs of burning. If all these objects truly belonged to the same settlement, Khumbu't would emerge as a community that once lived beside a river. The inhabitants used chert to cut and scrape. They strung beads together as jewelry. Clay was mixed with grass or rice husks and applied to the frames of houses. Hearths burned inside their dwellings. Pottery was used to store water and prepare food. This image is more modest than that of a megalithic megacity, but its historical value would still be immense. A structured community with household objects and living spaces dating to the beginning of the Holocene would push the history of coastal settlement in South Asia back by many thousands of years. Then a piece of wood appeared. The charred wooden sample measured approximately 30 centimeters by 15 centimeters. It was recovered from a layer of muddy sand containing evidence of an ancient river environment beneath modern marine sediment. NIOT sent the sample to 2 laboratories. The National Geophysical Research Institute in Hyderabad produced a radiocarbon age of approximately 8,592 years before present, with a margin of error of approximately 235 years. After calibration for variations in atmospheric carbon, the date corresponded to approximately 9,544 years before present. A laboratory in Hanover, Germany conducted an independent test and produced an almost identical result, approximately 9,545 years before present. Before present, commonly abbreviated as BP, is the archaeological method of calculating dates backward from the year 1950. The wooden sample therefore belonged to approximately the middle of the 8th millennium, before Christ, around 7,600 years before Christ. It was approximately 9,500 years old. That number immediately caused a sensation. The major cities of the mature Harappan period, such as Mohenjo-Daro Harappa and Dholavira, flourished during the 3rd millennium before Christ. Dholavira, one of the best preserved Harappan cities in Gujarat, contains occupation layers extending from approximately 3,000 to 1,500 years before Christ. The mature urban phase of the Indus civilization is commonly dated from approximately 2,600 to 1,900 years before Christ. A settlement at Kambat, dating to approximately 7,600 years before Christ, would have appeared nearly 5,000 years before the mature Harappan cities. That is the true significance of this date. In the following years, many popular articles continued pushing the age to 13,000, 31,000, and even 32,000 years. These figures were copied from one website to another and gradually became part of the Kambat legend. The technical report published by the NIOT team records a date of approximately 9,545 years for the wooden sample. It does not provide a reliable sequence of dates ranging from 13,000 to 31,000 years for the entire architectural area. This still leaves us with a very ancient discovery. It simply returns the story to its proper foundation of evidence. Even the date of 9,500 years does not automatically become the age of a city. Radiocarbon testing identifies the time when a tree stopped exchanging carbon with the environment. It reveals the age of the piece of wood, while the relationship between that wood and the sonar formations must still be demonstrated through a clear archaeological context. An ancient tree trunk could have been part of a building post. It could also have come from a forest that once grew on dry land and was later submerged by rising seas. Powerful currents may also have carried the wood over a considerable distance before burying it in the sediment reached by the sampling equipment. This is the point that divided archaeologists into 2 sides. The NIOT team looked at the combination of the ancient riverbed foundation-like formations, the bead stone tools, pottery hearth material bones, and the wooden sample. In their reconstruction, multiple lines of evidence converged toward one conclusion. Human beings once lived along this river when the area was still above water. The team's report describes the sediment layers in considerable detail. The uppermost layer, approximately 70 centimeters thick, contained sand and marine shells. Beneath it lay a muddy sand layer more than 2 meters thick containing freshwater shells and objects regarded as archaeological remains. Below that was a conglomerate layer associated with a high-energy river environment. At a depth of approximately 3 to 4 meters, the equipment reached calcareous sandstone containing fossilized root traces, an indication that this surface had once been dry land. This is one of the most persuasive parts of the Kambat record. The area now beneath the sea once had the appearance of a plain crossed by a river. Plants once grew there. Fresh water once supported life within the river channel. The sea later advanced and covered the former surface with marine sediment. Changes in sea level following the Ice Age were fully capable of submerging this land. Strong tectonic activity around the Gulf of Kambat may also have contributed to the lowering of the terrain. 3 major fault systems pass through the region, while earthquakes still occur periodically in Gujarat. However, the existence of an ancient flooded plain and the existence of a megacity represent 2 different levels of evidence. Critics have focused on the way the samples were recovered. Archaeology depends heavily upon context. A pot lying on the floor of a house beside a hearth and beneath a collapsed roof can tell an entire story. Researchers know which room it belonged to, how deeply it was buried, and how it related to the objects around it. Dredging destroys that relationship. When a steel grab raises a mixture from the sea floor, objects from different periods may lie together in the same load of mud. Powerful tidal currents can move everything, even before the equipment reaches the bottom. A piece of pottery may have come from another location. The wood may have belonged to a submerged forest. Teeth and bones may have been carried downstream by the ancient river from the interior. Stones with sharp edges may sometimes be geofacts, naturally formed objects, resembling tools created by impacts, water movement, and geological pressure. Geologist Paul Heinrich examined photographs of several published objects and argued that many of the samples could be explained through natural processes rather than human craftsmanship. Sonar also creates its own limitations. A long sand ripple observed from a suitable scanning angle may appear to be a wall. Rocks rising from the mud can easily form rectangular shapes on an acoustic map. The currents in the Gulf of Combat continually create parallel bands of sand. When sediment surrounds part of a hard rock surface, the exposed section may resemble a building platform or structural foundation. Even within the NIOT report, the researchers recorded numerous long sand dunes throughout the area that frequently changed position and covered the sonar signals. The honest debate about combat therefore rests upon a very specific question. Are we looking at a city? Or are we looking at an ancient riverbed, geological surfaces, and a group of scattered objects that human beings used at different times? The answer requires a survey of much greater precision. Archaeologists must identify a specific sonar formation guide, positioning equipment to the exact coordinates. Remove each sediment layer under controlled conditions and record the location of every object before lifting it. A wall must show stone fitting techniques, mortar courses of brickwork or tool marks. A house floor must be connected to a hearth post's pottery and an occupation layer. The date must come from multiple independent samples found within the same cultural level. Until that chain of evidence appears, the description combat megacity remains an intriguing hypothesis. The more securely established evidence indicates that beneath the Gulf of Combat lies an ancient river landscape, unusual geometric signals, and objects that may be connected to human activity. The distance between those 2 statements has sustained the mystery for more than 2 decades. But suppose the NIOT team is correct. Imagine the Gulf of Combat approximately 9,000 years ago. The coastline lay farther to the south. The area now covered by salt water was then a broad plain. A river flowed across the low-lying land carrying fresh water from the interior of Gujarat toward the sea. Along both riverbanks, groups of people selected elevated ground upon which to build their homes. Wooden posts were driven into the earth. House frames were woven from branches and then covered with clay mixed with grass. Smoke from cooking fires rose in the morning. Children ran along the riverbank. Adults shaped chert into knives, scrapers, and pointed tools. Small beads were carefully drilled and strung together as ornaments. Wooden boats moved across the water. Fish, shellfish, and riverside plants provided food. The community may have lived there for many generations before seawater began advancing farther into the river mouth. At first, the change occurred slowly. Salt water entered during months of high tides. Farmland near the shore became increasingly difficult to use. The inhabitants moved their houses to higher ground, repaired the banks, and opened drainage channels. Then the great storms arrived. A powerful wave destroyed homes near the river. Earthquakes fractured the ground. The current changed direction. New layers of sediment covered the old foundations. Over many centuries, the sea continued to rise. The plain became an estuary. The estuary expanded into a gulf. The final footprints disappeared beneath the water before sand and mud sealed the entire landscape. This geological scenario is consistent with the evidence for marine transgression and tectonic activity described by the NIOT team. It also brings Kambat close to a very ancient memory preserved within Indian culture. In the Shatapatha Brahmana, one of the ancient Vedic texts, Manu is washing his hands when a small fish appears. The fish asks him to protect it from larger creatures and promises to save him in the future. Manu raises the fish in a jar. When it grows larger, he moves it into a pond. Eventually, the fish grows to an immense size and is taken out to sea. Before leaving, it warns Manu that a great flood is approaching. Manu is instructed to build a boat and board it when the waters begin to rise. At the appointed time, the flood arrives. Manu ties the boat to the horn of the fish. It pulls him through the violent waters and carries the vessel to a mountain in the north. After the waters recede, Manu becomes the one through whom human life continues. The story of Manu and the fish belongs to India's own religious context. It stands far from the Book of Enoch in geography, language, and tradition. Nevertheless, both preserve a memory of rising waters, a warning from the sacred realm, a chosen survivor, and the beginning of a world after catastrophe. Kambat lies within the very land where this great flood account was transmitted through generations. That does not transform the riverbed beneath the gulf into Manu's route. It shows that the peoples of South Asia have reflected deeply since ancient times upon events in which water erased human settlements. And now we may place Kambat within the lens of the Book of Enoch. The boundary between evidence and interpretation must remain perfectly clear. The Book of Enoch belongs to the ancient Jewish world of the Near East. The text never mentions Gujarat, the Gulf of Kambat, or a submerged city off the coast of India. Nor do the objects recovered by NIOT provide direct evidence of the Watchers, the Nephilim, or a society constructed by fallen angels. The thread connecting the two stories exists at the level of symbolism and moral instruction. The Book of Enoch describes a world before the Great Flood, in which knowledge developed alongside violence. The Watchers abandoned their assigned positions and passed down techniques to humanity that had previously been kept hidden. Azazel taught the manufacture of swords, knives, shields, and armor, while also revealing the extraction and working of metals. Other Watchers taught enchantments, knowledge of roots, the movements of heavenly bodies, and signs upon the earth. That knowledge quickly fell into the hands of a society controlled by greed. Weapons caused more blood to be spilled. Power created oppressors. The Nephilim consumed the harvests, attacked human beings, and drove the earth into chaos. When the cries of the victims rose upward, God ordered the rebellious angels to be captured, warned Noah, and prepared judgment through water. Viewed through this lens, the significance of Kambat lies in the image of a community that once lived upon land, now transformed into the sea floor. A civilization may build houses, direct watercraft tools, and organize life along a river. That scale does not require magic or the strength of giants. It still requires knowledge, cooperation, and trust among human beings. Knowledge itself is a gift. The way knowledge is used determines the fate of a community. A stone blade can be used to cut food-shaped wood and protect a family. The same blade can become a weapon in the hands of someone seeking to take what belongs to others. A water channel can sustain an entire village. A ruler can also control that water to force vulnerable families into submission. The ability to build allows people to construct shelter from storms. Arrogance transforms a structure into a symbol of power and causes leaders to forget that every stone comes from the labor of the people. That is Enoch's central warning. Collapse begins with the way human beings treat one another long before the water reaches the first doorstep. In the original material, Kambat appears as the product of a civilization that received knowledge directly from the Watchers. This is an evocative hypothesis, but the current archaeological record leads us toward a more reliable formulation. If Kambat was once a settlement, it shows that human beings in South Asia possess the capacity to adapt, create, and build from a very early period. The lens of Enoch allows us to place a moral question above that achievement. Did the community use its strength to protect life or to serve greed? Sonar cannot answer that question. The mud at the bottom of the Gulf still conceals the story of those who once lived there. Yet that silence creates a powerful image. Imagine a father standing before his riverside home as the tide rises higher than it has in any previous year. Water reaches the earthen floor, carries away a basket of grain, and causes a clay wall to collapse. He holds his young child, looks toward higher ground, and understands that the family must leave before night is over. A woman gathers a few seeds, a pottery vessel, and the string of beads left to her by her mother. The elderly look back at the hearth one final time. The entire community leaves the place where its ancestors had lived for generations, carrying with them the memory of the river, the great flood, and the land that disappeared. Several centuries later, their descendants tell the story in different words. The waters swallowed the old world. A righteous man received a warning. A boat carried life through the flood. In India, that memory bears the name Manu. In Genesis, the survivor is named Noah. The Book of Enoch expands the setting through its account of the Watchers, the Nephilim violence, and the judgment sent down by the Most High. Each tradition maintains its own theological structure. They meet in the recognition that every civilization is responsible for the way it uses power. The Purge protocol in the original material may therefore be viewed through two layers. On the physical level, rising sea levels, tectonic movement, and earthquakes possessed enough force to break apart the river plain. Salt water advanced, buried the land beneath sediment, and transformed the place where people had once lived into the floor of the Gulf. On the spiritual level, the water carries the meaning of a boundary. It closes an era. It reminds us that human beings build upon land that has been given to them within the limits of laws greater than the power of any king. In this telling, the abyss becomes an image of something sealed away. The mud of combat preserves wood bones, stones, and sonar formations beneath the pressure of the ocean. Every tide deposits another layer of sediment like a heavy door, gradually closing upon an earlier chapter of history. The city may once have existed. It may also be a combination of an ancient riverbed, natural terrain, and traces left by different communities living at different times. Regardless of which direction the final answer takes, combat still leaves us with a remarkable truth, and upon which human beings once walked now lies deep beneath the sea. And this is where combat converges with Yonaguni Bimini and the disputed formations off the coast of Florida. At the scientific level, these four sites do not constitute a confirmed network of pre-flood cities. Each location possesses its own geology, chronology, and quality of evidence. Yonaguni contains stone terraces connected to sandstone bedrock. Bimini consists of coastal stone blocks arranged in bands. The formations off Florida still require rigorous archaeological investigation. Kumbat contains an ancient riverbed sonar signals and a group of objects recovered under conditions in which their context remains highly disputed. But when viewed through the symbolic lens of Enoch, they form a different map. It is a map of vanished lands. Places where ancient coastlines extended farther than they do today. Landscapes that human beings may have inhabited before the sea rose. Gaps in history waiting for modern technology to open them. These sites resemble witnesses made of stone, but their testimony must still be read carefully. Stone tells the story of geology. Wood reveals the age of a tree. Pottery tells of a craftsperson's hands. A hearth tells of a family that once prepared food. Only when all of them are found together within an undisturbed occupation layer can they tell the complete story of a city. Combat currently preserves individual pieces of that story. The missing sections remain beneath the mud, and that is what makes the site more important than a sensational story about a city 31,000 years old. Combat teaches us how to stand before a mystery with both curiosity and discipline. Faith opens great questions about the meaning of catastrophe. Science measures the age of materials and reconstructs changes in sea level. Archaeology requires every piece of evidence to remain in its proper position before a conclusion is reached. These three approaches can coexist. Truth is strong enough to endure examination. One day, underwater robots may penetrate the mud and discover courses of brick laid by human hands. Archaeologists may uncover a house floor with its hearth tools and pottery still intact. Multiple carbon samples within the same layer may establish the age of the settlement. At that point, the history of South Asia would require a very early new chapter concerning urban or semi-urban coastal life. It is also possible that the rectangular sonar signals will be explained as sand dunes, hard rock surfaces, and fault lines. The scattered objects would still demonstrate that human beings were present around the ancient plain, even if the community was far smaller than originally imagined. Both outcomes would have value. The truth about the past is more important than the feeling of victory in a debate. The Book of Enoch also directs its readers toward that spirit. The judgment of the Watchers began when they distorted the mission entrusted to them. Knowledge that could have served order was transformed into an instrument of power and desire. Human beings received new skills and then used them to harm one another. That lesson speaks directly to the present age. We now possess technology capable of seeing through the sea floor, reading genetic structures, controlling machines from a distance, and preserving more data than all the libraries of the ancient world combined. Every ability creates a responsibility. Sonar can discover a submerged city. It can also be interpreted far beyond the data because of a desire for fame. Archaeology can restore the memory of our ancestors. It can also be pulled into politics, national pride, or the race to secure a shocking headline. Faith can help people live humbly before the past. It also demands honesty because assigning an unproven claim to God weakens the very sacred message the storyteller seeks to protect. Combat therefore becomes a test of conscience in the very way we tell its story. We can respect the magnificence of the discovery while still preserving the boundaries of the evidence. We can reflect upon the Great Flood while distinguishing ancient texts from the geological record. We can believe in the power of the Most High while still allowing archaeology to examine every pottery fragment, every bead, and every layer of mud. True reverence always stands beside truth. At the bottom of the Gulf of Combat, the ancient riverbed still extends through the darkness. The geometric signals lie motionless beneath constantly shifting sand dunes. The 9,500-year-old piece of wood has risen above the water, but the people who once touched it still have no names. Perhaps they were inhabitants of a small prehistoric community. Perhaps they belonged to a settlement far larger than modern history has imagined. Perhaps many generations lived along this river before the sea forced them to leave their homeland. From the perspective of Enoch, that landscape resembles what remains of a world that was closed by water. Material glory sank. Wood gradually decayed. Earthen walls dissolved into sediment. Tools once held in human hands now survive only as small objects upon a laboratory table. What endures longer than any structure is the way a generation used its knowledge. Did they protect their families or oppress the vulnerable? Did they share the water or seize control of it? Did they build to serve the community or to glorify power? Those questions are close to everyone listening tonight. We are all building something: a home, a career, a family, a reputation, a community in which others will live after we are gone. Combat reminds us that time can cover every physical structure. A storm, an earthquake, or the slow movement of the sea is enough to transform streets into the ocean floor. Honesty, kindness, and responsibility toward others leave more lasting traces. Combat, therefore, does not need to become direct evidence of the Nephilim in order to carry Enoch's warning. The fact that land once dry now lies beneath 40 meters of water is enough to remind us of the limits of civilization. Human beings can create tools. The Creator establishes the laws that keep the entire world in motion. When intelligence is guided by conscience, communities develop and protect life. When power consumes compassion, the foundations begin to fracture from within, long before the great waters appear upon the horizon. Combat remains there, joining Yonaguni Bimini and the underwater formations off Florida upon the map of lost lands. At the archaeological level, that map still contains many blank spaces. Within the reflective lens of the Book of Enoch, it carries a clear message. Every civilization receives time, knowledge, and the opportunity to choose its path. The ocean floor preserves the consequences. The future is determined by the choices human beings are making today. a giant city discovered in the Caribbean Sea. From the thick mud of the Gulf of Combat, Enoch's visionary map carries us back once again to the Western Hemisphere. This time, the journey comes to a stop amid the sunlit waters of the Caribbean, off the far western tip of Cuba. Above the surface, the region appears peaceful, with nearly untouched coral reefs, white beaches, and low forests stretching across the Guanahatabibes Peninsula. This is a flat landscape formed upon karst bedrock, recognized by UNESCO as a biosphere reserve. To the west, the peninsula opens directly into the Yucatan Channel, where water from the Caribbean flows toward the Gulf of Mexico with a powerful and steady current. The scene possesses the tranquility of a tropical sea, but dozens of kilometers offshore, the seafloor suddenly plunges into a deep valley. There, beneath a column of water more than 600 meters high, a group of strange shapes lies motionless in the darkness. Sunlight penetrates only a very small portion of that depth. Below lies cold water, immense pressure, and almost complete darkness. Human beings can hardly reach the area with conventional diving equipment. Every survey must depend upon sonar, fiber optic cables, remotely operated robots, and a vessel stable enough to hold its equipment directly above the coordinates. It was at this location that a discovery once caused the international press to ask a daring question. Could a giant city be lying at the bottom of the sea off Cuba? The story began in July of the year 2000. Advanced Digital Communications, commonly abbreviated as ADC, was then a Canadian company operating in Cuba in the field of ocean surveying. The team was led by marine engineer Paulina Zelitsky, her husband Paul Weinsweig, and their son Ernesto Tapanes. Their mission focused on searching for Spanish ships that had sunk around the island during previous centuries. The waters west of Cuba once formed an essential route for fleets transporting silver, gold, and other goods from the New World back to Europe. Powerful storms, reefs, warfare, and piracy transformed the seafloor into an immense graveyard of ships. A DC lowered side-scan sonar toward the bottom in the hope of detecting ship hulls, cannons, or concentrations of metal buried within the sediment. Sonar works by transmitting sound pulses to both sides. The sound waves strike the terrain and return, creating an image from echoes. Hard rock produces one kind of response. Soft mud returns a different signal. A raised object creates a bright area accompanied by an acoustic shadow behind it. On the control screen, the seafloor usually appeared as a gray field crossed by long bands of light and darkness. Then, amid the relatively featureless terrain, a cluster of geometric forms suddenly appeared. The outlines resembled squares, rectangles, and circles. Some objects rose like pyramids or large mounds. Many formations stood close together in a way that caused the survey team to imagine an organized architectural complex. Paulina Zelitsky ordered the vessel to return and scan the area again. The signals remained in exactly the same positions. The team expanded the survey area. According to ADC's initial announcement, the anomalous region may have extended across as much as 20 square kilometers. Other reports reduced the area containing the clearest signals to approximately 2 square kilometers. This difference may have resulted from the way the boundaries of the entire site were defined, the quality of individual sonar passes, and the fact that the researchers had surveyed only part of the terrain. Regardless of which figure is used, the depth remains astonishing. The formations lie approximately 600 to 750 meters beneath the surface within a submerged valley near the base of Bajo de San Antonio off the Guanahatabibes Peninsula. At this depth, the water pressure is approximately 60 times greater than atmospheric pressure at the surface. Even a professional diver could only look toward that dark region from far above. A crewed submarine would require a specialized design. All fieldwork would depend upon small machines lowered by steel cable or fiber optic line. During the following months, ADC analyzed every band of data. Some signals suggested roads running between architectural blocks. Several large structures had broad bases that gradually narrowed toward the top, causing observers to associate them with step pyramids. Other objects resembled walls building foundations or concentric stone circles. According to statements by Paul Weinsweig, reported in the press, some structures may have measured hundreds of meters across and tens of meters in height. Smaller blocks were estimated to be approximately 2 to 5 meters long, and in some places appeared to be stacked upon one another. That was when the expression "the sunken city of Cuba" began to appear. In May of the year 2001, news of the discovery spread internationally. During the summer of that same year, the ADC team returned with a remotely operated robot weighing approximately 1.3 tons. The vessel held its position above the site. The robot slowly descended. 600 meters of cable were released through the surface. The natural light gradually faded before disappearing completely. The robot's floodlights illuminated only a narrow area directly ahead. Tiny particles of sediment reflected the light and moved across the camera like snow inside a dark room. After many hours of adjusting its direction, hard surfaces began to appear upon the monitor aboard the vessel. A large stone block passed before the camera. Then came a curved boundary. After that, one flat surface met another edge at an almost perfect right angle. According to the team's report, the cameras recorded stones approximately 2 to 5 meters long, with square, circular, and straight-edged forms. Some sections gave the impression that the material had been cut and arranged. However, technical difficulties allowed the robot to survey only the outer edge of the area. The central core and many of the largest sonar formations remained beyond the camera's reach. That limitation became the most important point in the entire case. Sonar revealed the form of the terrain. The camera exposed several stone blocks. Archaeology still required samples, tool marks, occupation layers, pottery bones, hearth, charcoal, or any artifact directly connected to human beings. To this day, no such evidence has been brought to the surface from the site. Even Paulina Zelitsky maintained a cautious position. She described the formation as resembling a large urban center, while emphasizing that determining its true nature before physical evidence had been recovered would be irresponsible. That caution was entirely reasonable. Underwater sonar images can easily deceive the human eye. The human brain constantly searches for familiar forms. A cluster of acoustic shadows may become a building. A geological channel may appear to be a road. Stone mounds distributed close together can easily become pyramids once an observer has already been told that they are looking at a city. Ocean explorer Robert Ballard once warned that sonar sometimes resembles an ink blot upon paper. Different people may see different images within the same band of signals. But the ADC team also had reasons to continue asking questions. The formations appeared with a relatively high degree of repetition. Circles, angular edges, and blocks that seemed to form groups created an impression of order extending beyond random terrain. Paul Weinsweig argued that this symmetry and repetition required a more thorough explanation. For that reason, the team invited Manuel Iturralde Vinon to participate in the evaluation. Iturralde is one of Cuba's leading geologists. He worked at the National Museum of Natural History and spent decades studying the tectonic structure of the Caribbean region. His research shows that Cuba possesses an extremely complex geological history, including sedimentary rocks, volcanic rocks, ophiolites, basalt gabbro, metamorphic complexes, and numerous granitoid bodies formed during different stages of tectonic development. This helps correct a misunderstanding that frequently appears in stories about the sunken city of Cuba. The Guanahacabaibes Peninsula above the surface is primarily a karst limestone plain. However, the entire island of Cuba is by no means composed only of limestone. The history of plate collisions and volcanic activity left many forms of igneous and metamorphic rock throughout the island. What the cameras recorded beneath the sea has so far been described only as granite-like. The survey team has not obtained a rock core from the structures themselves to determine their mineral composition. Therefore, the story that millions of tons of granite were transported from a distant location remains a hypothesis. It will become evidence only when a stone sample is recovered, analyzed in a laboratory, and compared with a specific geological source. Iturralde approached the case as a geologist. He acknowledged that the shapes were extremely unusual and deserved further investigation. At the same time, the depth of 650 meters made him cautious about the hypothesis of a city. Popular accounts often attribute to Iturralde the conclusion that the location dated to approximately 10,000 years before Christ. In reality, he offered a warning that was almost the opposite. If these structures had once been built upon dry land and then submerged to their present position, the process of subsidence would have required a far longer period. Iturralde estimated that such a geological movement might push the possible age back to approximately 50,000 years ago. While archaeology has not documented any society in the Americas during that period capable of constructing a megalithic city, this is the central paradox of the Cuban mystery. If the terrain is entirely natural, the formations represent only a rare geological phenomenon. If human hands created them, the history of settlement in the Americas would be forced to confront a period almost entirely without precedent. Ice Age sea levels do not solve the problem either. Approximately 20,000 years ago, when the great ice sheets reached their maximum extent, global sea level was approximately 120 to 125 meters lower than it is today. That reduction was sufficient to expose many continental shelves, create coastal plains, and form land bridges such as Beringia. The site off Cuba lies more than 600 meters below the surface. Even if all the ice from that period had remained locked upon the continents, the sea floor at this location would still have been submerged beneath nearly 500 meters of water. Therefore, the rise in sea level following the Ice Age can explain only a very small part of the depth. The remainder would require an enormous episode of tectonic subsidence, an underwater landslide formation within a deep sea environment, or an entirely different interpretation of the sonar data. The underwater landslide hypothesis deserves serious attention. A continental shelf may become unstable when an earthquake causes a massive body of sediment to slide down a slope. During that process, hard sections of rock may fracture into blocks, rotate, and finally settle at the bottom of a valley. When viewed by sonar, they can easily resemble collapsed walls, building foundations, or stacked megaliths. Right-angled fractures also occur naturally within many types of rock. A system of faults cutting through hard layers can create rectangular blocks. Erosion continues to clean the edges while soft sediment fills the spaces around them. The final result may resemble a foundation built by human hands. Martin Dean, who at the time led the diving archaeology unit at the University of St. Andrews, noted that limestone basalt and many other underwater geological formations are frequently mistaken for sunken cities. Natural fractures can create level surfaces and boundaries that strongly resemble constructed works. Even so, the answer that the formations are entirely natural also requires field data. A geologist must examine rock samples, identify the layers, measure the orientation of the fractures, and map the entire landslide mass. An explanation based upon a few sonar images remains preliminary, just as calling the site a city remains preliminary. True science requires both sides to return to the seafloor. That is what ADC once planned to do. The team intended to lower an underwater excavation device into the area, remove mud from the rock surfaces, record close-up footage, and collect samples directly from the site. A deeper survey was proposed for the year 2002, attracting the interest of oceanographer Sylvia Earle and specialists in marine archaeology. That plan eventually came to a halt. Operating robots at a depth of 650 meters is extremely expensive. Every day at sea requires a specialized vessel, a technical crew, fuel backup equipment, and permission from the Cuban government. Financial, political, and logistical problems prevented the survey program from continuing on the scale that had been announced. More than 2 decades have passed, and the public still primarily looks at the same collection of sonar images and short video segments recorded in the year 2001. A controlled archaeological excavation fully published through peer-reviewed research has still not confirmed that the site is a city temple or human-built structure. That absence of evidence continues to nourish the mystery. Whenever the old images reappear online, the story is told again with a new date. One version calls it a city 6,000 years old. Others push it back to 10,000 years before Christ. More daring articles place the structure 50,000 or even 100,000 years in the past. To date, the area has produced no carbon sample pottery tool or occupation layer capable of establishing the age of a civilization. Every existing date comes from speculation regarding the rate of subsidence comparisons of shape or archaeological sites located on nearby land. A DC initially proposed an age of approximately 6,000 years, because a megalithic structure on the western coast of Cuba had been believed to date to around the 4th millennium before Christ. That connection is suggestive. The distance between a site on land and a formation more than 600 meters beneath the sea must still be bridged by physical evidence. From this point, another hypothesis began to appear. Cuba was once connected to the Yucatan Peninsula by a strip of land. Viewed upon a map, the idea appears appealing. The far western tip of Cuba points directly toward the Mexican coast. The gap between the two landmasses is called the Yucatan Channel. Both regions share a geological history extending across tens of millions of years, and geologists have studied submerged ridges and structural relationships beneath the area. However, an ancient geological connection is entirely different from a land bridge across which human beings could walk. The Yucatan Channel today reaches depths of thousands of meters in many places. Sea level during the Ice Age fell by only approximately 120 meters. That evidence indicates that Yucatan and Cuba remained separated by deep water during the age of modern humans. A land bridge connecting the two regions 10,000 or 20,000 years ago would require another major tectonic mechanism, and present geology has not established such a scenario. A more reasonable possibility is that ancient human beings possessed seafaring abilities. The Caribbean islands were reached by indigenous peoples traveling in boats many thousands of years ago. Winds, currents, and successive island chains allowed trade migration and the transmission of ideas throughout the region. Architectural similarities between Cuba and Mexico, should they one day be confirmed, could therefore result from maritime connections rather than a lost strip of land. Paul Weinsweig once remarked that the sonar formations resembled Maya and Aztec pyramids. That observation creates a powerful image. Imagine a terraced structure lying at the bottom of the sea, while on the other side of the channel, the stone temples of Mesoamerica still rise above the land. From there, some people connected the Cuban site with Teotihuacan. That comparison must be placed within the correct timeline. Teotihuacan lies within the Valley of Mexico, far from the Cuban coast. The city flourished during the opening centuries after Christ and reached its greatest scale between approximately the 1st and 6th centuries. The Avenue of the Dead, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent belong to an architectural tradition that has been excavated, dated, and connected to a particular society. The underwater site off Cuba currently has no established date. The concept of a shared cultural genome therefore remains a hypothesis. Similar architectural forms do not automatically prove a relationship of ancestry. Step pyramids appear in many places because they represent a stable structural solution. A broad lower foundation supports the weight, the upper levels gradually narrow, and the load is distributed downward into the ground. Even so, the question of an older tradition deserves to remain open. If future robots discover worked stone chisel-marked stairways or symbols, archaeologists will need to compare them with pre-Columbian Cuba, the Maya region, Central America, and the cultures surrounding the Gulf of Mexico. Every small detail could create an enormous difference. The direction of a cut, the type of tool that produced a mark, the method used to join stones, the geometry of the structure. Traces of organic material within the sediment. A charcoal sample found beneath a stone foundation could reveal when human beings were present. A clearly identifiable pottery fragment could lead to a cultural tradition. Even a small number of orderly symbols might open the door to a system of writing. Until that day arrives, the Cuban city remains a name given to a cluster of unidentified formations. But this mystery also touches another layer of memory in the Western Hemisphere. In the Popol Vuh, the sacred text of the Quiche Maya, the creators once fashioned a generation of people from wood. Those beings walked, reproduced, and spoke, but their minds were empty. They forgot the one who had created them and lived without gratitude. Then a great flood descended. The wooden people were swept away. The old world came to an end before humanity was created again from maize, the food source at the heart of Maya life. The Popol Vuh arose within a cultural setting entirely different from that of the Book of Enoch. The two texts use their own languages, symbols, and theological systems. Nevertheless, both place moral corruption before a flood that brings an age to an end. In the Popol Vuh, humanity forgets the Creator. In Enoch, the Watchers violate the boundaries assigned to them. The Nephilim spread violence, and the earth becomes filled with blood. The Cuban story lies between these two regions of tradition. To the east lies the Caribbean world. To the west lie the Yucatan Peninsula and the lands of Mesoamerican cultures. This unique geographical position transforms the superstructures beneath the ocean into a perfect piece within the map concealing civilizations whose lives were taken by an immense body of water. And at this moment, we have sufficient grounds to bring the Caribbean pyramid complex under the interpretive lens of the Book of Enoch. The boundary of interpretation demands absolute transparency from the very first moment. The Enochic text deliberately excludes names such as Cuba Guanahaca-Bibes, Yucatan, and Teotihuacan from its written record. The present archaeological data from the seafloor also remains in the process of being deciphered, still seeking direct evidence of the Watchers, the Nephilim, or the imprint of the Great Flood within the Caribbean itself. Yet the true greatness lies in this. Both the ancient sacred vision and the megalithic ruins submerged deep beneath the water carry an immense warning through the lesson of morality. That lesson engraves a chilling truth when an advanced system of knowledge deliberately casts aside reverence for the Creator. When a civilization deceives itself and raises its own power to the level of the divine, the boundary between survival and destruction is immediately torn apart. The cold megalithic blocks submerged beneath the Caribbean continental shelf and the dark architecture of imprisonment within Enoch's vision speak together with one eternal voice. They warn humanity that every form of arrogant power possesses an ending. The summit of pride must always pay its full price in the depths of destruction. The vast ocean remains there, assuming the role of an enforcer of order, using millions of tons of salt water to swallow the misguided chapters of history and lock them within silence. That sealed map beneath the seafloor continues patiently to send a razor-sharp echo toward our own civilization today. Awaken and turn away from the path of those powers now forced to submit obediently to their chains beneath thousands of meters of water. The purging power of water in the modern era. The lesson of water's all-consuming power extends far beyond the boundaries of ancient civilizations, carrying its mighty scythe directly into the historical remains of the modern era. Throughout human history, countless prosperous cities have been forced to bow before the power of the tides and immense reservoirs. The ocean and the waters always stand ready to exercise their control, proving that being sealed beneath water is a protocol still operating within our own age. Most megacities submerged beneath the sea belong to extremely distant eras. But the city of Epicuén in Argentina claims the position of one of the youngest ruins. During the 1970s, this location proudly held a thriving community of 5,000 residents alongside 300 businesses operating at full capacity. Epicuén was once a radiant jewel of Argentine tourism, where crowds poured in to enjoy its mineral-rich, glittering waters. Yet the height of glory always stands dangerously close to the edge of the abyss. When the late 1980s and early 1990s arrived, that entire radiant town was completely swallowed by the bitter salt water of Lake Lago Epicuén. The system of dikes collapsed. The water rose at a terrifying speed, submerging roads, hotels, and houses beneath the depths of the lake. Today, as the water has begun to recede slightly, Epicuén has emerged like a devastated white cemetery, covered beneath a deadly layer of salt. It stands as ironclad evidence of the fragility of human architecture before the fury of nature. Leaving South America behind, our deep diving record carries us toward a silent coordinate in the state of Tennessee, in the United States, the town of Willow Grove. This fertile valley was once a bustling center of commerce, surrounded by productive fields and a closely connected community. However, industrial development demanded an enormous sacrifice. During the 1940s, the government ordered the construction of a dam, and the entire town was forced to surrender its life to a massive reservoir known as Dale Hollow. The surging waters rose, completely erasing the churches, schools, and familiar streets. The entire thriving district was sealed beneath the lake. Today, courageous divers still regularly descend into the silent darkness of Dale Hollow Lake to witness the architectural ruins lying obediently beneath the deep water. Willow Grove is a vivid lesson in how modern civilization is willing to submerge its own heritage with its own hands in order to serve the ambition of conquering energy. Drifting toward the waters off the coast of Wales, we encounter a chilling legend known as Tyno Helig, a location celebrated as the Welsh version of Atlantis. Historical records and oral literature preserve the story that this place once contained a prosperous kingdom ruled by a lord who lived with arrogance. Moral corruption, extravagant feasts that trampled upon virtue, and overwhelming crimes awakened the ocean's ultimate fury. Folklore engraves the image of a great storm crashing upon the land, tearing apart the coastline, and permanently submerging the magnificent castle and the entire royal domain beneath the North Sea. Modern surveys in the waters of Conwy continue searching for megalithic traces of this kingdom. The shadow of Tyno Helig creates a perfect resonance with the warning of the Book of Enoch corruption rebellion, and a way of life that challenges creation must always pay the full price through a sentence of being sealed beneath salt water. Thus, from the 100,000-year-old megacity in Cuba and the Yonaguni megalithic complex to the modern towns of Epicuén and Willow Grove, water has always played the role of the ultimate purging force. The ocean and the immense reservoirs have never stopped establishing boundaries. Together, these submerged coordinates declare one great message: the abyss is always waiting to swallow every arrogant mark left by humanity, sealing it within a silent map until the day of judgment of the Most High. The sealing power of water extends far beyond the burial of megalithic structures. That deep curtain of darkness also serves as an immense biological prison, concealing entities that still carry the breath of the prehistoric age. Submerged beneath crushing pressure and a dense mass of darkness, these colossal creatures continually patrol the boundaries of forbidden territory. The extreme environment at the bottom of the abyss provides them with perfect concealment, allowing them to maintain their persistent survival across thousands of years. Their brief emergence above the waves has always triggered earthquakes within the human mind, shattering the fragile boundary between apocalyptic legend and empirical science. And to encounter the greatest surviving remnant of this mysterious ecosystem, the visionary map draws us away from the raging oceans and carries us directly into the silent, mist-covered highlands of Scotland. There, a seismic fissure filled with dark fresh water, saturated with peat, dominates the landscape. This is the hiding place of a biological phantom that has controlled humanity's curiosity for centuries. The giant aquatic monster of Loch Ness. The terrifying legend of the Loch Ness monster has remained deeply rooted in the human mind for the past 1,500 years. The first clear record of this entity appeared in the year 565, when the monk Columba witnessed an enormous beast rising from the bottom of the loch to attack a man. The monks' authority and prayers forced the creature to dive back into the black water. It was not until the 20th century that this veil of mystery was truly torn open, transforming Loch Ness into the center of a worldwide obsession. The story erupted dramatically at dawn on the 22nd of July in the year 1933. While calmly enjoying a journey with his wife, George Spicer, suddenly slammed on the brakes before a horrifying sight. An abnormal entity unexpectedly crawled across the road directly in front of their car. What the Spicers saw was a beast with an enormous body extending more than 7 meters a neck, rising more than 1 meter, and a complete absence of visible limbs. It moved like some kind of hybrid amphibian, leaving a deeply torn trail across the roadside grass before plunging directly into the loch. During that same year, a motorcyclist traveling beneath the light of the moon was also stunned by its appearance. He described the creature as a perfect hybrid between a seal and an enormous marine reptile, a species that textbooks claim became extinct 60 million years ago. It possessed an elongated neck and a small, narrow head perfectly matching the form of the giant plesiosaur. 1 year later, global fascination was officially ignited by the historic photograph taken by British surgeon Colonel Robert Wilson. The image clearly captured the head and long neck of the creature cutting through the water. The photograph dominated the front page of the Daily Mail edition, published on the 21st of April, sending Nessie's fame to its dazzling peak. Ironically, during the 1990s, the truth behind the photograph was finally exposed as an elaborate performance arranged by Christian Sperling. Remarkably, that revelation acted like a flame, intensifying the desire to hunt for the original creature. The falsification of one photograph did nothing to diminish the value of tens of thousands of other genuine encounter reports. Once the misleading information is removed, we are left with a treasure of decisive evidence that forces the scientific community to acknowledge the presence of a beast dominating the deep waters. The record of sightings connected to this entity forms a sequence of profoundly shocking events extending across 3 centuries. As early as October of the year 1871, a resident named Mackenzie, who lived in the Balnine area, personally witnessed the moment the creature emerged from the darkness. It tore through the surface, moved forward with a slow and commanding rhythm, and then suddenly vanished into the depths at terrifying speed. In the year 1954, the crew of a fishing vessel used its navigation system to detect an enormous biological mass moving across the bottom of the loch. The entity maintained a speed equal to that of the vessel itself. The force of the creature's movement generated an immense whirlpool upon the surface, threatening to swallow everything around it. As the 21st century began, advanced machinery continued to corner the creature. On the 26th of May, in the year 2007, Gordon Holmes recorded clear footage of a dense black mass racing through the water. This authentic footage forced the academic world to re-evaluate the entire ecosystem of the Scottish Highlands. Only a few months later, on the 27th of August, an unusual wave appeared across the otherwise calm surface of the loch, tearing through the water as a completely black mass more than 5 meters long swam beneath it. By the year 2014, advanced satellite imaging systems had once again captured the shadow of an enormous creature moving just beneath the surface. The image taken from space clearly revealed the form of a colossal aquatic monster. Most recently, high-resolution sonar surveys of the loch floor have produced the complete outline of an entity possessing a large hump and an extremely long neck concealed beneath the deep mud. To date, the Loch Ness archive has accumulated more than 1,000 encounter reports regarded as completely reliable. Together with evidence of the highest authenticity, Nessie continues to affirm its position as a great entity dwelling within the heart of the modern world. And now, when the shadow of this creature is placed within the interpretive lens of the Book of Enoch, every piece suddenly fits together into a haunting answer. During the period before the Great Flood, the Watchers deliberately interfered with the genetic code of creation. The fallen angels crossbred species producing chimera-like monsters and colossal beasts that exceeded the boundaries of biology. The purging protocol of the Great Flood arrived to cleanse the surface of the Earth and completely destroy those mutated creatures. Yet deep seismic fissures, such as Loch Ness, unintentionally became perfect prisons for survival. God established seals within these dark waters, forcing the remnants of the age of hybridization to remain beneath the crushing pressure of the depths. The Loch Ness monster completely sheds its identity as a fairy tale. It is the living remnant of an ecosystem that was once cursed, a fragment of the Leviathan system of aquatic monsters, silently patrolling the boundaries of its own watery cage and obediently awaiting the moment of final judgment. Ningen, a mutated remnant of the Nephilim race beneath the Antarctic ice shelf. Leaving behind the mist-covered highlands of Scotland, the visionary map continues to draw us directly toward the southernmost point of the Earth. Ahead lies Antarctica, a continent of endless white, where the wind can sweep across the ice with enough force to knock a grown adult to the ground. Winter brings months of darkness. Enormous masses of ice drift slowly across the sea, while beneath them lies a world so cold, deep, and vast that most of it still remains beyond direct human observation. Within those waters, a strange record of encounters has circulated in Japan for more than 2 decades. The entity in that record is known as the Ningen. In Japanese, Ningen simply means human being. Yet that familiar-sounding name is attached to an utterly alien form. An enormous creature with a pale white body, skin as smooth as a whale's, a face resembling that of a human, and long limbs moving beneath the water. Some accounts describe the Ningen as possessing a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs, with a body reaching several dozen meters in length. Other versions portray a whale-like creature with 2 broad front flippers resembling arms and a flat face, where 2 dark eye sockets sit above a mouth shaped like a long cut. It usually appears at night. A large white mass rises among the ice floes. At first, sailors assume it is the back of a whale or a piece of ice rotating in the current. As the ship draws closer, the shape slowly changes direction. 2 long appendages spread outward on either side. A pale face turns toward the surface, and then the entire body sinks into the dark water. Only widening circles of waves remain upon the sea. That is the image that created the legend of the Ningen. But the true origin of the story is even stranger than the creature being described. The Ningen belongs to modern Japanese internet culture, rather than to an ancient legend passed down over hundreds of years. On the 11th of May, in the year 2002, an account named Baito-kun posted a story in the paranormal section of the forum known as 2channel. The writer claimed to have heard the information from an anonymous person connected to Japan's whale research program in the Southern Ocean. According to the post, sailors had seen human-shaped objects rising to the surface like whales. They possessed white bodies, measured tens of meters in length, and appeared in several different forms. One type resembled a human being with a head and 4 limbs. Another looked like 2 halves of a human body joined together. The person who supplied the story was identified only as Mr. F. His identity, position, and vessel have never appeared in any public record. The original account openly acknowledged its second-hand nature. The writer had merely heard it from someone else and had been asked to keep the source's name secret. Nevertheless, the story's connection to whale research vessels, distant seas, and a concealed secret immediately captured the attention of readers. Only a few hours later, a separate discussion thread dedicated to the creature was opened. Members began adding details, sketching its appearance, and proposing names. People compared it to white whales, giant squid, the kraken, the sea spirit umibozu, and creatures from Japanese animation. Many digitally altered images created by users also appeared during this period. Some placed enormous white bodies into satellite photographs. Others attached human faces to whale bodies, or blurred the outline of an iceberg to create the impression that it was moving. Discussions about the Ningen continued through the end of the year 2003. The paranormal magazine Moo introduced the creature to a much larger audience during the following years. By around the year 2010, images and videos of the Ningen began spreading widely across English-language websites, transforming a story from a Japanese internet forum into an international sea legend. Research by Felicity Greenland and Philip Hayward classifies the Ningen as a form of media lore, a legend collectively created, expanded, and transformed by online communities across multiple platforms. This also corrects a detail frequently repeated in accounts of the Ningen. The public record currently contains only rumors involving personnel connected to the whale research program. It does not include an official report from an icebreaker, an authenticated maritime log tissue samples, a skeleton, or footage clear enough for biologists to examine. The most famous photographs are all of poor quality, uncertain origin, or show signs of digital illustration. Within the darkness of the Southern Ocean, that ambiguity becomes extremely powerful. Human vision performs poorly when light and reliable size references are absent. An animal 10 meters long at a great distance may appear many times larger. Water distorts outlines. White ice reflects the lights of a ship, creating forms that resemble flesh. The Southern Ocean is also filled with animals capable of producing a strange encounter. Whales, seals, and many species of marine mammals regularly move among the ice. Antarctic minke whales may rise with the front of the snout, visible arch the back high above the surface, and then dive in one rapid continuous motion. When viewed from the side through dark water, the two pectoral fins and the pale underside may easily create the appearance of arms and a human body. A small rotating iceberg can produce a similar illusion. The portion of the ice beneath the water is usually far larger than the part visible above it. Currents cause it to tilt, revealing dark cavities, deep grooves, and two long protrusions. Under floodlights, those details quickly become eyes, a mouth, and arms within the observer's mind. Science therefore places the Ningen closer to whales, seals, drifting ice, and misidentification under extreme conditions. Yet this record still leaves behind a question that prevents many people from looking away from Antarctic waters. How deep must an ocean be to conceal a large species? Human beings have mapped the surface of Mars in remarkable detail, while most of the seafloor on our own planet is still reconstructed from indirect data. Waters beneath the ice are even more difficult to reach. Darkness, pressure, low temperatures, and thick ice create a natural boundary around the world below. That very gap opens the interpretive lens of the Book of Enoch. The Enochic account says that the Watchers were assigned to observe humanity but deliberately violated the boundary between heaven and the earthly world. They took human women as wives and produced a generation of giants. Those beings possessed enormous strength but lacked self-restraint. They consumed the harvests, attacked animals, oppressed humanity, and caused blood to flow across the earth. When the violence reached its limit, God issued judgment. Gabriel was commanded to lead the Nephilim into a war of mutual destruction, while the great flood brought the world before the flood to an end. The Book of Enoch then describes a distinctive outcome. The bodies of the giants were destroyed. The spirits produced by their mixed origin between human beings and the Watchers remained upon the earth, causing suffering, conflict, and destruction until the final judgment. This detail creates an important distinction. The Enochic text speaks about the spirits of the Nephilim after their bodies died. It does not describe a group of giants fleeing into the ocean, adapting to the pressure, and becoming aquatic monsters. The idea of the Ningen as a biological remnant of the Nephilim therefore belongs to the interpretive hypothesis of Kyros Codex. But that hypothesis opens a thought-provoking scene. Suppose a small group from the world before the flood attempted to escape from the land before the waters covered every plain. They fled toward the ocean. Their enormous bodies, which required immense quantities of food, gradually moved away from the shallow waters where corpses, trees, and mud had been carried by the flood. Below them, lay deep ocean trenches, underwater caves, and cold regions where the human beings of that age could never pursue them. Some of the creatures died during the earliest stage. The others moved deeper. If such a population survived and reproduced across many generations, natural selection might have favored bodies capable of retaining heat more effectively, enduring greater pressure and using oxygen more efficiently. Thick layers of fat would protect the internal organs. Skin color would gradually become pale within an environment deprived of light. The front limbs would broaden to push through the water, while the body would become more streamlined to move through ocean currents. Across thousands of years, only a few traces of the original form would remain. A flat face, two forward-facing eyes, limbs resembling arms, and a size exceeding that of most creatures familiar to sailors. Within this scenario, the Ningen becomes the transformed descendant of a race that once walked upon the earth. Ocean pressure serves as an enormous mold, while darkness removes the features once required beneath the sunlight. With each passing generation, the creatures move farther from the appearance of their ancestors until the prehistoric giants become pale beings beneath the Antarctic ice shelf. This is indeed an extraordinarily evocative perspective. However, the abyss in the Book of Enoch also reveals one rather similar detail. After the rebellion, God commands that Azazel be bound, cast into darkness, and covered with sharp stones until the day of judgment. The other watchers are also imprisoned within deep abysses separated from the heaven where they once lived. The depths become a prison for those who cross sacred boundaries. When the Southern Ocean is viewed through this image, the region beneath the ice shelf takes on the appearance of a natural prison. Above it lie millions of tons of ice. All around it is water so cold that an unprotected human being could survive for only a very short time. Light disappears. Pressure increases with every meter. A creature hidden deep within that region could live its entire life without ever seeing the sky. Within this interpretation, the Ningen becomes the shadow of a rebellious age driven out of the familiar world. It carries the size of a giant, a face resembling that of a human being, and a body transformed by the marine environment until its origin has become almost impossible to recognize. That completely white body does not need to step onto land. A single appearance beside a ship would be enough to make sailors feel that they had just witnessed something belonging to another age. Then the creature turns downward. The wake closes above its back. The white shadow disappears beneath the ice, returning to a darkness that humanity cannot yet follow. Through the lens of Enoch, this becomes the image of a prolonged sentence. The beings born from rebellion once used their strength to oppress the world upon the land. Now, their remnants must live within cold waters, far from the light, and far from every human city. And what do you think about this mysterious monster? Do not forget to leave your opinion in the comments below. The Bloop. The roar of an entity awaiting the day of judgment. Leaving the frozen realm of Antarctica behind the sonar network continues to guide us into the largest expanse of ocean on the planet. Ahead lies the South Pacific, an immense body of water stretching between South America, Antarctica, and small islands, separated by thousands of kilometers. On a map, it appears as an almost completely empty field of blue. Beneath the surface, however, lie underwater mountain ranges, abyssal plains, and tectonic fractures extending across a seafloor that has never received sunlight. It was within these waters that the ocean once released a sound powerful enough to make the entire scientific community stop and listen. It was named the Bloop. During the summer of the year, 1,997 researchers from the Pacific Marine Environmental Laboratory of the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, commonly known as NOAA-PMEL, were monitoring volcanic activity and earthquakes beneath the seafloor. Their instruments consisted of a network of hydrophones, special microphones positioned deep beneath the water. These devices detect extremely small changes in pressure and convert them into electrical signals. The songs of whales, the propellers of cargo ships, an earthquake beneath the sea floor, or the movement of ice all leave their own distinctive traces upon an acoustic chart. During what appeared to be an ordinary shift, the equipment recorded an extremely low-frequency signal. It began with a deep vibration, then rapidly rose in frequency over a period of nearly 1 minute. Its intensity was so great that multiple hydrophones, positioned more than 3,200 kilometers apart, recorded the same signal. Later analysis showed that a sound of this kind was powerful enough to travel more than 5,000 kilometers underwater. That distance would be equivalent to a sound originating near the coast of California and still being heard clearly from the other side of the continental United States. The ocean makes this possible through a special layer of water known as the SOFAR channel, the sound fixing and ranging channel. Temperature, salinity, and pressure create a natural corridor that traps low-frequency sound waves within it. The sound is continuously refracted upward and downward between layers of water, allowing it to travel hundreds or even thousands of miles, while losing only a small portion of its energy. Whales have long used this very corridor to communicate across enormous distances. Scientists place hydrophones near the axis of the SOFAR channel to listen for earthquakes, volcanoes, ships, and marine life across nearly the entire ocean. But the Bloop possessed a structure that initially sounded very different. The signal rose in a rhythm resembling the call of a living creature. It lacked the sharp explosion commonly associated with a bomb. Its acoustic pattern also differed from the sound of a ship's engine propellers or drilling equipment. Its broad spectral shape continued for an extended period and then changed pitch in a way that caused many listeners to imagine a living body forcing air or water through an enormous vocal organ. One question immediately emerged. What beneath the ocean could produce a call powerful enough to travel through thousands of kilometers of water? The blue whale is the largest animal known to science. An adult may reach nearly 30 meters in length, and its low-frequency calls can travel across enormous distances. The Bloop was far more powerful than the sounds produced by any known animal. From this point, an astonishing hypothesis began to spread. The source might have been an enormous creature whose size far exceeded that of a blue whale. Some popular articles pushed the speculation even further, imagining a body hundreds of meters long moving through the abyss. The most daring versions claimed that the creature would have needed to be dozens of times larger than a blue whale to produce such intensity. That image quickly touched humanity's deepest fear of the ocean, an enormous animal lying beneath the dark water, its body extending beyond the reach of any camera. A single call spreading across nearly half the Pacific Ocean, then silence. However, the assumption that a louder sound means a larger body overlooks one crucial piece of information. Sound intensity also depends upon the mechanism that produces it, the environment through which it travels, the depth of the source, and whether the signal enters the SOFAR layer at the correct angle. A massive fracture within the ice can release far more energy than the vocal organ of any animal. The monster hypothesis therefore belongs to the popular imagination rather than to NOAA's official conclusion. Oceanographer Christopher Fox, who directed PMEL's acoustic monitoring program during that period, once noted that the signal possessed several characteristics resembling biological sound. At the same time, he stated that the source was vastly more powerful than the call of any known animal and favored an explanation involving ice. The way the public heard the Bloop also helped the imaginary creature grow larger. The recording, commonly shared on television and across the internet, had been accelerated 16 times. At that speed, the slow vibration became a short, rounded bloop, sounding almost like the call of a marine animal. When played at its actual speed, the signal lasts longer and sounds more like deep thunder or an enormous mass of material breaking apart. NOAA clearly noted this acceleration beside the recording and its spectrogram on the official data page. The story became even stranger when enthusiasts of horror literature compared the estimated location of the Bloop with the works of H.P. Lovecraft. In the fictional story, The Call of Cthulhu, Lovecraft describes the sunken city of R'lyeh as lying at an imaginary coordinate in the South Pacific. That region is relatively close to the area that the public once associated with the source of the bloop. The geographical coincidence immediately fueled the theory that the sound belonged to an ancient entity sleeping beneath the sea. Cthulhu is a literary character created during the 20th century. Even so, the image of an enormous being imprisoned beneath a sunken city matched the public imagination surrounding the signal from the year 1997 with frightening precision. The distance between the two coordinates still exceeded 1,700 kilometers, and the entire connection belonged to fictional literature. For many years, NOAA continued placing hydrophones closer to Antarctica. Researchers recorded the sounds of volcanoes, earthquakes, sliding icebergs grounding against the seafloor, and enormous sections of ice breaking away from glaciers. Gradually, a familiar acoustic pattern began to emerge. In the year 2005, new data from the waters surrounding Antarctica showed that ice quakes, seismic events within ice, produced signals almost identical to the bloop. When an enormous iceberg fractures, the cracks may travel through many kilometers of solid ice. The released energy drives sound waves down into the water. Part of the signal enters the SOFAR corridor and spreads across the ocean. The event resembles breaking a sheet of glass, except that this sheet of glass is hundreds of meters thick and as wide as an entire city. The resulting sound is powerful enough to be detected by multiple stations positioned thousands of kilometers apart. From the year 2005 through the year 2010, NOAA deployed additional hydrophone networks in the Bransfield Strait, the Drake Passage, and the Scotia Sea. These instruments recorded tens of thousands of ice fractures, collisions, and breakups every year. Their charts displayed the same broad spectral pattern, the same changes in frequency, and the same duration as the bloop. Clearer evidence emerged when scientists used acoustic signals to track the iceberg known as a 53A. This enormous iceberg moved near South Georgia Island and began breaking apart in the year 2008. Every fracture produced a powerful signal that traveled through the surrounding waters. The hydrophones recorded the location and time of every acoustic event. Their spectra were almost identical to that of the bloop recorded in the year 1997. NOAA therefore determined that the most reasonable source was one or more enormous icebergs fracturing within a region extending from the Bransfield Strait to the Ross Sea or near Cape Adare areas that frequently produce powerful ice signals. The bloop therefore received a scientific explanation. It was the roar of ice. An enormous iceberg had fractured, separated from the Antarctic ice mass, or collided while drifting. The energy traveled downward into the sea, entered the natural acoustic corridor, and moved through thousands of kilometers of water. That truth does not diminish the power of the original moment. The source of the sound did not need a heart-lungs or an enormous mouth. A sufficiently large mass of ice carried within it power equal to the call of the monster human beings had imagined. The ocean became a dark cathedral, while Antarctica produced a fracture loud enough to echo all the way to the opposite side. But now, let us place the acoustic signal of the bloop within the interpretive lens of the Book of Enoch. The boundary between evidence and interpretation must be established at this point. NOAA has determined that the source of the bloop is consistent with an ice quake. The acoustic record currently contains no biological evidence of an enormous sea monster. The Book of Enoch also makes no reference to the South Pacific or to a roar known as the bloop. The connection lies within the image evoked by the sound. The Book of Enoch tells us that after the Watchers violated the established order, God commanded that the rebels be captured. Azazel was bound by his hands and feet and cast into Dudel, a wilderness filled with sharp stones and darkness. Semjaza and the other Watchers were bound within the valleys of the earth for 70 generations, awaiting the final day of judgment. The text goes on to describe how they will be led into the fiery abyss and eternal prison after the sentence has been completed. In later visions, Enoch sees abysses, places without light, and rebellious stars being held because they departed from the courses appointed to them by the Most High. The abyss in the Book of Enoch is primarily a spiritual prison for beings who cross their assigned boundaries. It is not the name of a specific ocean trench. Yet, when an extremely low-frequency sound rises from the South Pacific and travels through thousands of kilometers of water, the image of ancient prisoners stirring within the abyss immediately comes alive. Imagine someone sitting before a sonar monitor in the year 1997. The room is illuminated only by the blue light of the equipment. An unusual signal slowly appears. The sound begins at a frequency so low that it lies almost beyond the natural hearing range of the human ear. Then it rises, continues, and disappears. Outside lie millions of square kilometers of dark water. The source is far beyond the position of any ship. No one yet knows that ice can produce a sound of this kind. At that moment, the bloop could easily be heard as the heavy breathing of an enormous entity being held at the bottom of the abyss. Through the lens of Enoch, it becomes a sound emerging from a sealed prison. The chains remain intact. The sentence is still being carried out. The watchers who once crossed the boundary are imprisoned and awaiting the day of judgment. This is a symbolic interpretation, but it remains consistent with the content of the text. They possessed knowledge and power, but used them for corrupt purposes. The result was the complete loss of freedom. From their elevated position, they were cast into the deepest place. The bloop makes that image tangible. A sound rises from a dark region of ice, travels far, yet never escapes the source that produced it. The ice fractures. The water presses downward. Immense power remains restrained by law. Scientifically, it is energy released by an ice quake. Symbolically, it is the sound of a sentence still being carried out. Noah explains the mechanism. The Book of Enoch suggests the meaning. Human beings continually desire to cross boundaries. Power, knowledge, and ambition can easily persuade us that we are capable of doing so. The Watchers made that choice. The abyss was the consequence. The bloop is not their call, but it evokes the weight of the depths. A place of darkness, immense pressure, and everything being held in confinement. This story also reveals that mystery excites the imagination, while truth requires time. Megalodon, the prehistoric killer that escaped the Great Flood. Leaving behind the reverberating sound waves of the bloop, the detection system continues to carry us toward a flesh and blood killing machine that once ruled every ocean. Its name is Megalodon. Millions of years ago, when many regions that are now dry land still lay beneath the sea, an enormous fin once cut across the surface of the water. Beneath that fin was a body nearly as long as 2 railroad cars, a mouth wide enough to swallow a human being, together with a small boat and multiple rows of triangular teeth that continually replaced one another after every hunt. The scientific name now widely used is Otodus megalodon. The final word comes from Greek and carries a very direct meaning, large tooth. The name is entirely deserved. A single megalodon tooth can measure more than 18 centimeters, nearly the length of an adult human hand. The crown is thick. The edges are lined with tiny serrations, and the root is strong enough to withstand the force required to bite through the skin, muscle, and bones of large whales. Because shark skeletons are composed mainly of cartilage and decompose easily, most of what remains of Megalodon today consists of teeth, several vertebrae, and a few pieces of calcified cartilage. Paleontology places Megalodon in the world's oceans from approximately 23 million years ago, until its disappearance around 3,600,000 years ago. For most of that time, it stood almost unchallenged at the top of the food chain. Megalodon hunted large fish, sea turtles, seals, sea cows, and especially whales. Fossil skeletons bearing deep bite marks upon ribs, vertebrae, and flippers show that this shark often targeted the chest or tail of its prey. A bite through the rib cage could damage the heart and lungs. A strike against the tail could leave a whale unable to swim, its body weighing tens of tons floating helplessly in the sea. Studies of zinc isotopes in fossil tooth enamel also show that Megalodon occupied an extremely high trophic position. At the beginning of the Pliocene, its diet in some regions had begun to overlap with that of the great white shark. The two killers targeted whales and marine animals of similar size, creating a silent competition that continued across many generations. The true size of Megalodon continues to be revised as new methods emerge. Earlier models commonly placed the largest individuals at approximately 15 to 20 meters. A large-scale study published in the year 2025, based upon fossil vertebrae and comparisons with 165 shark species, proposed a reasonable maximum length of approximately 24.3 meters. According to this model, an individual measuring 16.4 meters may have weighed around 30 tons, while an exceptionally large specimen could have approached 94 tons. These figures remain estimates because science has never recovered a complete megalodon skeleton. Its body shape may also have differed greatly from the giant great white shark commonly portrayed in films. New research suggests that Megalodon possessed a more elongated and energy-efficient body, with a relatively smaller head, an extended torso, and a large tail that generated steady propulsion. Such a form would suit an ocean-crossing predator capable of swimming enormous distances while following the migration routes of whales. It did not need to move like an arrow. Its mass endurance and jaws alone were enough to turn every encounter into a death sentence. Even more surprising is the way Megalodon raised its next generation. Approximately 10 million years ago, the land that is now Panama lay beneath a warm, shallow sea. When paleontologists studied small teeth from the Gatun Formation, they discovered that most belonged to newborn and juvenile megalodons. Their estimated body lengths ranged from approximately 2 to 10.5 meters. This region once functioned as a natural nursery. The shallow water provided abundant small fish turtles and marine animals of manageable size. Reefs and coastlines allowed juvenile megalodons to avoid larger predators, including adult members of their own species. Later studies found evidence of several similar breeding grounds, showing that warm coastal waters played an important role in the life cycle of this giant shark. From the moment of birth, a young megalodon may already have measured more than 3 meters. Some analyses of fossil vertebrae also suggest that juveniles developed inside the mother by consuming unhatched eggs in a process similar to that of several modern shark species. This brutal mechanism produced offspring that were already large and strong before entering the ocean. The world of Megalodon operated according to a very simple law: eat in order to grow in order to survive, and become strong enough before another predator finds you. Chemical studies of its teeth indicate that Megalodon maintained a body temperature higher than the surrounding water. This ability to regulate body temperature once helped it digest food rapidly, remain active across different marine environments, and provide energy for an enormous body. In return, the system demanded a tremendous amount of food. When whale populations declined or moved toward colder waters, the advantage that once allowed Megalodon to dominate may also have become a burden. Approximately 3,600,000 years ago, Earth's climate changed dramatically. The oceans gradually cooled. Ice expanded at both poles. Sea levels fell, reducing many of the shallow water regions Megalodon had used as breeding grounds. Whale populations also changed, while great white sharks expanded their range and competed directly for food. A smaller predator required less energy, matured more quickly, and survived with greater flexibility. Megalodon carried an enormous body that had to be fed continuously. As multiple links within the ecosystem changed at the same time, the ancient king of the ocean gradually lost its territory. The youngest reliable fossils place its extinction at approximately 3,600,000 years ago. Colder climate, the loss of breeding grounds, changing prey populations, and competition with great white sharks most likely work together to bring the species to an end. That is the conclusion supported by the fossil record. But the ocean always leaves enough darkness for legends to survive. In the year 1875, the Challenger expedition recovered 2 manganese-coated megalodon teeth from the floor of the South Pacific. Decades later, a study based upon the rate at which the manganese layer had accumulated claimed that the teeth were only several tens of thousands of years old. That information once raised a shocking possibility. Megalodon may have survived into the age of modern humans. This dating method was later rejected. Manganese forms at greatly different rates depending upon the environment, making the use of its thickness as a clock unreliable. The two teeth belong to a period consistent with the known Megalodon fossil record, rather than to the Holocene. Another story emerged in Australia in the year 1918. Naturalist David Stead reported that lobster fishermen off Port Stephens refused to return to their familiar waters. They claimed that an enormous pale shark had risen from the depths, damaged their equipment, and carried away heavy traps. The witnesses offered widely different estimates. Some claimed that the animal measured more than 30 meters, while others placed it at nearly 100 meters. The case produced no tooth tissue sample or photograph. A whale shark or a large great white viewed in rough sea conditions may have been exaggerated. Local newspapers also reported a powerful storm at the time, raising the possibility that the traps had been swept away by the weather, and that the shark story helped the fishermen explain the loss. Whatever the true cause, the Port Stephens incident became one of the most famous legends involving a living megalodon. In the year 2013, the myth erupted once again through the program Megalodon, The Monster Shark Lives. The program used actors portraying scientists' staged imagery and fabricated footage while presenting everything in the style of a documentary. Millions of viewers believed that a genuine scientific investigation had discovered evidence of a modern megalodon. The production was later exposed as entertainment. Even so, it demonstrated the unusual resilience of the story. Human beings want to believe that a creature from the ancient world is still swimming somewhere beneath the dark water. The rediscovery of the coelacanth in the year 1938 strengthened that belief. Before then, the fish had been known mainly through fossils and was believed to have disappeared tens of millions of years ago. When a living specimen appeared in a fishing net off South Africa, biology had to reopen a case that seemed to have been closed. From that point onward, whenever Megalodon was mentioned, people repeatedly asked the same question. If the coelacanth survived, why could Megalodon not be hiding within the abyss? The answer lies in biological scale. The coelacanth lives slowly, inhabits deep, rocky slopes, and requires a relatively small amount of food. Megalodon was a giant apex predator, requiring whales, large fish, and an energy-rich ecosystem. A population surviving across millions of years would also require many mature individuals, breeding grounds, and enough prey to sustain every generation. A creature nearly 20 meters long would also leave evidence. Shark teeth are continuously shed and replaced. An individual living today would leave recent teeth within modern sediments. Whales that survived attacks would carry enormous bite marks. Carcasses feeding traces environmental DNA in seawater and images from research vessels would also gradually appear. The modern record contains no such evidence. Every identified megalodon tooth comes from geological layers older than approximately 3,600,000 years. The Mariana Trench is often chosen as the ideal hiding place within these stories. The Challenger deep reaches a depth of nearly 11,000 meters. Light disappears completely. The pressure is strong enough to crush many forms of equipment, and most of the trench floor remains difficult to access. Yet the deepest part of the ocean is also one of the most food-poor environments on Earth. Below a depth of approximately 3,000 meters, the primary sources of energy are sinking carcasses and marine snow, which consists of extremely small pieces of organic material. A body as large as Megalodon would need to hunt whales and other energy-rich marine animals. Remaining inside a deep trench far from concentrated prey would contradict the biology of a predator built to cross entire oceans. Modern sharks also rarely live deeper than 3,000 meters. Sparse food creates a natural limit that even well-adapted deep-sea species must obey. This evidence places reports of encounters with enormous sharks into their proper context. A large shadow beside a vessel may belong to a whale shark. A tall fin in the open sea may belong to a great white shark, a basking shark, or a whale. Distance-heavy waves and fear make human beings prone to exaggerating size. Photographs lacking a reliable scale cause the creature within the frame to grow according to the imagination of the viewer. Science currently regards Megalodon as extinct. But when viewed through the lens of the Book of Enoch, its image still carries a greater meaning. First, the boundary must be clearly established. The Book of Enoch does not directly mention Megalodon. The fossil record places the disappearance of this shark millions of years before modern humanity. Therefore, the connection between Megalodon, the Nephilim, and the Great Flood belongs to the symbolic interpretive layer of Kyros Codex, rather than to a conclusion of paleontology. Within that interpretation, Megalodon rises as a clear symbol of the brutality of the ancient world, an enormous body created for killing, a set of jaws powerful enough to crush whale bones, a king that survived by consuming the largest creatures around it. That image recalls the world before the Great Flood in the Book of Enoch. When violence filled the earth, the Watchers violated their appointed boundaries, and the Nephilim giants used their strength to seize everything. The Book of Enoch says that the Nephilim consumed the fruits of human labor, turned against the animals, and then killed human beings and drank blood. That world was driven into a condition where strength determined every right, while the lives of the weak possessed no value. Within the prehistoric ocean, Megalodon played a similar role on the biological level. It stood above almost every other predator. Whales became prey. Seals, large fish, and smaller shark species all fell within its hunting range. When this creature is placed within the story of a world filled with violence, Megalodon becomes the living image of an age in which power had developed to a colossal scale. Then the sentence of the Great Flood was carried out. Water swept across the plains, tore down cities, and carried away every living creature upon the land. Within the Kyros Codex interpretation, this upheaval also threw the oceans into chaos. Sediment trees, animal carcasses, and fresh water from the continents poured into the sea. Temperature, salinity, and ocean currents changed across immense regions. To preserve their lives, a group of megalodons, within this hypothesis, abandoned the shallow seas. They raced across the continental slopes, swam down into deep seismic fractures, and entered waters that the chaos at the surface could not easily reach. This is the escape reconstructed through the lens of Enoch. Science has not found evidence that any group of megalodons survived in this way. Yet the story creates an image powerful enough to explain why legends about them continue to cling so tightly to the human imagination. A small number of individuals survive. They remain far from the coast. Across many generations, their bodies adapt to cold water darkness and limited food. Reports of enormous shark-like shadows, occasionally appearing near the surface, would then be understood as moments when remnants of the old world accidentally entered the present. A black fin cuts through the fog. A body larger than the vessel rises for only a few seconds. The tail strikes with tremendous force, tearing the surface into a trail of white foam. Then the creature disappears before any camera can record it clearly. That is the legend. And the legend places Megalodon precisely where humanity has always placed ancient monsters, upon the boundary between what is known and what still lies beneath the sea. Through the lens of Enoch, the Mariana Trench and the fractures of the ocean become a form of preservation chamber. But this is a prison rather than a kingdom. The creatures that once dominated food-rich waters are now driven into a cold, energy-poor, lightless region. The enormous size that once gave them power becomes a burden that must constantly be fed. Every journey toward the surface also exposes them to the danger of human discovery. The abyss seals them beneath crushing pressure. Darkness keeps them far from the world above the sea. The order of the Creator places that power within its proper limits. Within this account, Megalodon is no longer the free king of the ocean. It becomes the sealed remnant of an age in which violence crossed every boundary. Every strike of its tail against the surface recalls a blood-soaked past. Every dark shadow beneath a ship reminds humanity that the ocean once sustained predators larger than anything living today. And every fossilized tooth held within the palm of a human hand proves that such a creature truly existed. Science says that Megalodon disappeared approximately 3,600,000 years ago. Legend continues to place it within waters that humanity has not fully observed. The Book of Enoch raises a deeper question. What happens when power becomes the sole purpose of existence? Within the natural world, a body that has grown too large can easily collapse when the climate, prey, and environment change. Within human life, power without conscience creates the same weakness. An individual may cause everyone to tremble. An empire may control land wealth and armies. But power built upon consuming everything around it will eventually exhaust the very source of its own survival. Megalodon dominated the oceans for millions of years. Then the water grew colder. Its prey changed. Its breeding grounds disappeared. A smaller and more adaptable predator entered the same food chain. The giant king gradually vanished from the fossil record, leaving behind only teeth and bite marks upon whale bones. That is the cold judgment of nature. Through the lens of faith, it also resembles a sacred law. Every form of power must serve the order that created life. When power turns upon everything and begins to consume it, that power prepares the path toward its own destruction. Whether Megalodon lies only within ancient layers of rock, or whether one final remnant still hides within the abyss, the message remains unchanged. Human beings may look toward the sea and fear an enormous fin, but the greater danger always begins when greed, cruelty, and the desire to dominate grow within humanity itself. Megalodon was the perfect killer of the prehistoric world. Its enormous tooth reminds us of power. Its extinction reminds us of limits. And the dark abyss beneath the ocean reminds us that every remnant of an age of violence must ultimately remain beneath the order of the Creator. Enoch's Forbidden Map has officially come to an end, but its message is sounding piercing alarm bells directly into the mind of modern civilization. God established iron boundaries beneath the ocean floor for one purpose alone: to protect humanity from its own arrogance. The blood-soaked lesson of the world before the Great Flood has lost none of its absolute warning power. Once knowledge becomes completely separated from morality, once humanity tears apart the boundaries of creation with its own hands, catastrophic destruction will inevitably follow. History has always preserved its brutal cycle for empires that dare to rise up and challenge the divine. The abyss still holds its black mouth wide open, patiently waiting for the next souls to lose their way. The crushing pressure and bitter salt water remain ready to carry out the purging protocol once again. Every remnant of arrogance must pay the price of being sealed beneath the depths of the sea. What do you think about the secrets sleeping beneath the ocean floor? Leave your sharpest thoughts in the comments below. Join the ranks of Kyros Codex today and continue with us as we uncover humanity's most forbidden files. Now close your eyes, relax your mind, and allow the silent darkness of the abyss to carry you into sleep.